Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. I survive in the land of blood mist and Terumi is my fiance. Chapter 61. After the secret mission, Wuxin spent a week peacefully in the land of rivers. When Commander Yuto Murayama could no longer bear it and wanted to lead his team to search for Maruoka Tsunekazu's team heading to the land of fire, Maruoka Tsunekazu finally returned late, and the team was the same as before the departure, without any damage. In the hotel, in Yuto Murayama's room, Wuxin, Maruoka Tsunekazu and others sat down, and in front of him, Yuto Murayama was sitting cross-legged with a scroll in his hand. After Maruoka Tsunekazu finished reporting his observations, Murayama Yuto nodded slightly and said in a deep voice. Tsunekazu, it's not as simple as you said. On the surface, there are only some frictions and tensions on the border between Fengwo and Fengwo, and it seems that they are far from fighting. However, our water country often had frictions with other countries during the reign of the Second Mizukage. The First Ninja World War broke out suddenly because of frequent conflicts, border frictions, and accumulated hatred. My father died in the First Ninja World War because of this. Yes, Maruoka Tsunekazu responded respectfully. His mission report was mixed with analysis, and he believed that the two countries would not break out in a war. This idea was not recognized by the experienced Murayama Yuto. However, the investigation to this point is enough. The rest, Lord Mizukage will make his own judgment. Everyone pack your bags. In 2 hours, we will set off to return to the village. Yes, X9. The ninjas such as Wuxin and the business travel executives below responded respectfully and stood up and dispersed. The business attendants downstairs of the hotel packed their luggage and pulled the carriages and packhorses. After everything was ready, under the command of Yuto Murayama, the team left the capital of the river country in an orderly manner and headed towards the port city in the south of the river country. During the journey, Shuilian and Yamagami Keizi returned to Wuxin, and the three of them were at the end of the team, serving as the team's rear guard. Shuilian, who returned to Wuxin's team, frequently looked at the Captain Wuxin beside him. Wuxin had been holding a scroll in his hand since he left the capital and stepped onto the forest road. He had never raised his head for most of the day. Shuilian couldn't help but say, Wuxin, Captain, the mission is over, it's time to relax. Teacher Yongren taught that a ninja who doesn't know how to rest is not a good ninja. The way you keep reading makes me ashamed. The captain is a genius in the village and learns ninjutsu quickly. Unlike us, it is very difficult to learn ninjutsu. Wuxin didn't answer. Yamagami Keizi smiled and replied to Shuilian. Wuxin didn't ask pets and studied ninjutsu. The scroll in his hand was compiled by Wuxin himself. It was about the water transformation technique of the Ghost Lantern clan. Although Wuxin had a good memory, his memory was not as good as a bad pen. The memory of the secret technique of the Ghost Lantern that he explored before was written on the scroll. Ah, there are no geniuses in the world, they just work harder than others. Wuxin seemed to suddenly remember, and replied to the two perfunctorily, and continued to study the secret technique of the Ghost Lantern. Regarding the practice of ninjutsu, Wuxin was a little careless. In the ninja team, he studied the secret ninjutsu of the ninja clan in the village, and he was not afraid of being discovered by others. However, no one would be ignorant and peek at the content of Wuxin's scroll. Stealing other people's ninjutsu is a taboo. Wuxin's so-called hard work caused Shuilian's mood to fluctuate. He knew Wuxin's attainments in water escape ninjutsu. They had experienced many missions together. Wuxin had performed many types of water escape, including powerful water escape ninjutsu. Shuilian knew that he was not a genius. He always regarded Wuxin's strength as a genius. In the past, he didn't pay much attention to Wuxin's study of scrolls. This time, he felt that he seemed to understand why Wuxin was so strong and had so many ninjutsu reserves. Put in more effort than others. Just enough effort, right? Sui Lian murmured, and took out a ninjutsu scroll from her bag and began to study it. Effort. I don't know about other things, but at least in terms of learning ninjutsu, effort still has some effect. It's just that the strength of a ninja is not the more ninjutsu he masters, the stronger it is. Many special jonins often have outstanding individual abilities. Wuxin glanced at Sui Lian, spoke slowly, and after a slight pause, he continued. Also, Sui Lian, please be on guard with Kaiji, we are the guards of the team. After Wu Xin finished speaking, his eyes turned back to the scroll in his hand. Normally, there would be no danger on this route on the return journey. Wu Xin was the team's small leader, with 2 strong men under him. In this relatively safe environment, it would be best for his men to be on guard, and it was impossible for him to do everything himself. It's okay, the environment is relatively safe, I'll be on guard. Yamagami Kaiji smiled slightly. Shui Lian was about to put away the scroll helplessly. After hearing what Yamagami Kaiji said, she smiled and said, Iori, you are so kind. The team, including Wuxin, was a little relaxed. Seeing this, Wuxin didn't say much and studied the water transformation secret technique. It took a week from the wind country to return to the capital of the river country, plus the time to wait for Maruoka Tsunekazu's team, almost half a month. During this period, Wuxin has been studying ninjutsu. Wuxin has initially mastered the ninjutsu given by the 3rd Mizukage. The water transformation secret technique is deeply understood, but it cannot reach the level of the Kazuki clan. According to Wuxin's understanding, the Kazuki clan's secret technique has the ability to quickly heal itself. The Haoshui wrist technique can increase the strength of its own limbs and can also transform into a large water monster. The premise of all this is that the body can adapt to the water transformation secret technique, so that when attacked, the body will liquefy as an instinctive reaction. Moreover, Kazuki Mai's ninjutsu practice has not reached that level. Wuxin's research during this time has made him realize that it is not so easy for him to master the water transformation secret technique. However, after a long period of research, some results have been achieved. Although the body cannot react to hydration, it can control hydration by itself. In a short period of time, it can turn itself into a jelly-like mucus similar to water, avoiding physical attacks and reducing water-based ninjutsu attacks. This level of hydration has reached Wuxin's requirements. Confuse the enemy and make the enemy mistakenly believe that Wuxin's body is a water clone. After liquefying on the ground, take advantage of the enemy's inattention and recondense into a human form to launch a counterattack. It requires precise judgment to use it. Compared with the systematic practice of the Ghost Lantern clan, Wuxin has only mastered some of the basics, but for Wuxin, it is barely enough. The team set out from the country of rivers and arrived at the port city called Nangong in the south of the country of rivers in the evening after a week. After a night of rest, the team boarded a sailboat the next morning to start the sea voyage. After sailing for more than 20 days, Wuxin and his team finally set foot on the territory of the country of water. Arriving at the central island of the land of water, Wuxin, who was heading towards the village, didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the air in the land of water seemed to be sweeter, without the previous oppression and without the previous faint smell of blood. The change of the water shadow seemed to dispel the blood mist of the land of water and wiped away the haze in the hearts of the ninjas of the Hidden Mist village. The moody and unpredictable Hidden Mist ninja Murayama Yudo, Wuxin and others all felt relieved. Water Country. The Hidden Mist Village. At noon, Wuxin and other ninjas finally arrived at the Mizukage building. Murayama Yudo brought Wuxin and 2 other Chunins to deliver the report of this investigation mission to the 4th Mizukage. In the Mizukage office, Wuxin looked at Yagura Karataki, who was sitting in the Mizukage position. The investigation mission and the journey took nearly half a year. Yagura Karataki still had the baby face that made people approachable. But there was some majesty on his face that he had never had before. Perhaps it was because he was the Mizukage and needed to pay attention to his image. Yagura Kuji read the report scroll very slowly and carefully. After a long time, he raised his head and whispered, Yasudo, your judgment is correct. There are a large number of ninja troops stationed on the border, and the 2 sides occasionally rub against each other. It's like a gunpowder barrel. As long as the temperature of the spark is a little higher, it may cause a violent explosion. Yes, this feeling is very similar to the 2nd generation. A large number of ninjas are stationed, and then a war suddenly breaks out. There is more ease in Yudo Murayama's respectful attitude, unlike the strictness and restraint when facing the 3rd generation. Yudo Murayama is a ninja trained during the 2nd generation Mizukage period, and now he has served as the 3rd generation Mizukage. Yudo Murayama knows a lot about the First Ninja World War, although the Water Country did not interfere too much in the Second Ninja War because of its weakness. But anyone who has participated in the Ninja World War will never forget that feeling in his life. Yagura Karataki nodded slightly, expressing his approval of Murayama Yuto's judgment, and said in a deep voice, "Well, thank you for your hard work. This information is very important to the village." During the Second Ninja World War, the Water Country did not participate too much for some reasons. Now that the Fire Country is becoming more and more powerful, nobles and wealthy businessmen from all over the world like to go to the Fire Country Konohagakure to issue missions. Even our traditional sphere of influence, the Sea Country, has more Konoha ninjas. This situation cannot continue. The baby-like face, coupled with the majesty of the Mizukage, makes people involuntarily want to help him. What do you mean? The amount of information in Yagura Karataki's words is very large. Murayama Yuto and Wuxin, who is one step behind, both understand the words of the Mizukage. Yagura Karataki has been in power for a short time. Although he is highly respected, his reform measures on the Blood Mist are inevitably considered weak by some diehards who grew up in the Blood Mist era. The fourth Mizukage needs a war to consolidate his position. It means literally. Kuretsuchi Yagura simply replied without explanation, and then changed the subject and said, "Yodo, our philosophy has been implemented, and the ninja school has cancelled the subject of severing ties. In the prison, under the strict punishment system during the Sandaime period, a large number of prisoners were released. Your former teammate, Yoshiyuki Takami, was also released. Yoshiyuki Takami was flogged for failing the mission and has been in custody for half a year. You, go see him." Kuretsuchi Yagura spoke softly. When he mentioned Yoshiyuki Takami's name, he noticed that his teacher, Yuto Murayama, seemed to tremble. Although he couldn't see his expression, this person seemed to be very important to him. "Has Yoshiyuki been released?" Nothing serious, just some minor injuries." "Yuto, Maruoka Tsunekazu, you two have worked hard, go down. Please go to the mission hall to find the master to receive your reward." When Yagura read Maruoka Tsunekazu's name, he might not be familiar with it, so he read it a little unclearly. As Yagura spoke, he took out a receipt from his desk, wrote a few words, stamped it, and gently pushed the receipt forward. At the end, he even used the word, "please." "Yes, X2. The two bowed and agreed. Yuto Murayama took the receipt and led Tsunekazu Maruoka out of the Mizukage's office. Only Wuxin was left in the field. Wuxin looked at Yagura, turned his head and looked at the backs of Yuto Murayama and Tsunekazu Maruoka as they left. The Mizukage only mentioned Yuto Murayama and Tsunekazu Maruoka's names, so Wuxin didn't fail to hear what they said and left with them. Wuxin looked at Kuju Yagura and whispered, "Lord Mizukage." Kuju Yagura had a blank expression on his face. He took out an envelope from the drawer slowly, put it on the table, gently pushed it forward, and said in a deep voice, "Wuxin, this is the reward for your other mission. Although it was aborted, you also put in a lot of effort and eliminated half of the targets. However, the reward is only half." Kuju Yagura aborted Wuxin's secret assassination mission, and did not blame Wuxin. He handled the matter impartially, completed the assassination mission, and distributed the reward. Yes, Wuxin walked forward slowly, picked up the envelope with some complexity, put it in his pocket. "Such a task will never appear again. You must be very distressed to see the name of Yuto Murayama on the task list." Kuretsuchi Yagura spoke softly, but there was no expression on his baby face. "Yes, I don't quite understand the task of the third Mizukage. But as a ninja of the Hidden Mist Village, there is no choice. This is the sadness of weapons." Wuxin expressed a little bit of his own views, but did not dare to say too much. Kuretsuchi Yagura, a ninja who grew up during the reign of the third Mizukage, although his philosophy was contrary to that of the third Mizukage, there must be some common points in his views on ninjas. Especially when Kujo Yagura became the Mizukage, Wuxin knew very well that no leader would like subordinates who pretended to obey but actually disobeyed, and would not like subordinates who had their own ideas and refused tasks. Although Wuxin rejected and did not do much, the only one who really killed was Mai Hazuka. The other target of death was killed in the line of duty during the mission, and even attracted Wuxin's admiration. With admiration in his heart, he became more repulsive to this kind of mission. Goji Yagura nodded gently and said softly, "Please tell me the details." This word, "please," this gentlemanly gesture, made Wuxin feel a strange feeling, as if he had always been used before, and suddenly someone respected and cared about him. Wuxin recalled the details of the mission, and then honestly explained who he killed and how he killed them. Who he didn't kill, and the reasons and thoughts for not killing, and then why he stopped later. Yagura Kuji listened very carefully. After listening to Wuxin's words, a look of pity appeared on his face, and he said regretfully, Kagaya Takema, an excellent young man in the Kagaya clan, what a pity. I have seen the stub of this mission. The descriptions of Kagaya Takema and Murayama Yuto are not as hateful as the third generation recorded. Mikazuna and Shueilin are related to some cases of indiscriminate killing of civilians and abuse, and some descriptions are in line with the facts. However, the evidence is not very sufficient, and they should not be killed so rudely. Yakura Kuji did not have a completely opposite attitude towards the third-generation Mizukage's approach, and he did not carry out the kind of black and white political reform. Some particularly cruel systems that were rejected by the village ninjas were abolished, but Yagura did not seem to reject some secret practices. Just like this assassination mission, Yagura did not seem to be very opposed to the third-generation Mizukage's approach. It's just that for suspects with insufficient evidence, he did not have the casualness of the third-generation Mizukage to deal with them together when he had time. Yagura Kujira paused for a moment, then continued in a deep voice. Forget it, these things are in the past. Work hard, I also need you to complete some private tasks for me. Please give the order, Mizukage-sama. Please give the order, Mizukage-sama. Wuxin had a serious attitude, and his young face was calm beyond his age. Haha, don't be so reserved. We will call you when we need you. The fourth generation Mizukage, Yagura Karuta, smiled gently and waved his hand gently. Yes, my reforms have caused dissatisfaction among many veteran ninjas who grew up during the Blood Mist period. There are quite a few stubborn ninjas of this kind. However, it is our ideal to transform the village into a paradise. Even if there are countless difficulties, we should move forward bravely, don't you think? Yagura Karuta seemed to have a smile on his face, but it was also like a half-smile. His speech was slow, revealing a sense of indifference, but there seemed to be hints in his words, which made people a little unpredictable. After not seeing him for a while, the fourth generation had the majesty and routine of a superior, and he didn't say things directly. Wuxin pondered for a while and said in a deep voice, Yes, fourth generation lord, I remember what you said to me. I will firmly support you in transforming this Blood Mist village into a paradise, no matter how many difficulties or hardships there are. The people in the village should live and work in peace, be friendly and help each other, and have smiles on their faces when they have no worries about food and clothing. Those ninjas born in the unpredictable and moody Blood Mist are too dangerous, just like time bombs. Maybe they were friendly companions yesterday, but suddenly they met in war tomorrow. Who can feel at ease with such a ninja system and such a ninja group? After Wuxin expressed his support, he sneered at the Blood Mist ninjas and the policies that created that Blood Mist atmosphere, and held a firm opposition. Not to mention that everyone gets along well with each other like in Konoha, as Wuxin remembered. But in the Blood Mist ninja environment, the ninjas all have an unpredictable face, as if they are going to attack in the next second. Just like the third Mizukage assigned the mission, he gave instructions before departure, secretly looking for a reliable ninja in the team, and assigned a secret mission. If Konoha is a friendly environment, with a few saboteurs like the Root, then the Kurigakure is a bad environment, with a few people like Yagura, Yuto Murayama, and Mushin who are dissatisfied with the Blood Mist. In this village, both the diehards and the reformists are a minority, and most of the ninjas trained in the Blood Mist are neutral. They don't care whether they can maintain the traditional Blood Mist or reform it. Those who are stubborn and conservative and insist on the Blood Mist policy are like Yagura's reform team. They are few in number but very determined. Wuxin's impassioned speech drew affirmation from Goji Yagura, who nodded and said in a deep voice, Yes, the village is our home, and there should not be such an uneasy atmosphere. As long as the reform persists, we can cultivate three generations of ninjas of the new era. Then the Blood Mist era will become a historical memory. Yes, Wuxin confirmed that Goji Yagura had a clear and firm reform plan, and was not a young man who was eager for success. Fortunately, the diehards suffered heavy casualties in the Tailed Beast Rebellion in January, otherwise the reform would not be so easy to promote. The Mizukage Yagura changed the subject and smiled. He felt relieved that the diehards of the Blood Mist era died in battle. Tailed Beast Rebellion. Wuxin keenly captured the keywords and repeated them word by word in a low voice. Yagura Kuji had a gentle smile on his face and said softly. Well, there was a tailed beast riot in the village in January, the three-tailed and six-tailed. When talking about the six-tailed, Yagura Kuji suddenly stopped, paused for a moment, and then changed the subject. The third-generation Mizukage sacrificed his life to seal the tailed beast. The specific follow-up situation is the village's top secret, and you don't have enough authority. Well, you have worked hard on this mission to investigate the wind and fire countries. Go and have a good rest. The large team of village construction needs you. Yes, Wuxin bowed slightly and agreed, then turned and left. After leaving the Mizukage building, Wuxin went straight to Takeuchi weapon shop. This mission took more than 5 months. With such a long vacation, Wuxin didn't know if he was fired. If not, would Mr. Takeuchi Taro still hire him? Wuxin was walking on the street with light steps. He didn't notice the scars on the houses in the village when he came. After reporting the mission, Wuxin found that many houses in the village had obvious signs of repair. It was like half of the wall collapsed, or there was a big hole in the wall, which was repaired with seams. The Tailed Beasts Rebellion, the three-tail and the six-tail, the third Mizukage sealed the tailed beasts and sacrificed himself. The third Mizukage is really a difficult person to evaluate. Wuxin walked forward. While thinking and guessing in his heart, he recalled his contact with the third Mizukage. As soon as he graduated from the ninja school, he received the teachings of the third Mizukage. Wuxin kept the words he said to him in mind. It is because of their sacrifice that I became an excellent ninja. Without their sacrifice, I would have stood out. The blood mist slaughter is just digging my own grave. Wuxin's body is an adult soul in a childhood, which is Wuxin's advantage. Wuxin thinks that he is not a so-called genius, but he has been practicing ninjutsu since he was a child, which makes him grow faster than others. The early bird flies first, one step faster, and every step faster. When other classmates are still playing ninja games or playing in the mud, Wuxin has learned most of his parents' ninjutsu and can use it in actual combat. During the ninja school period, Wuxin scored full marks in all 3 years of ninjutsu exams. In 3 years of physical battles, he defeated his opponent with one move most of the time. Only Zabuza could take a few moves. This kind of enchanting record and talent, coupled with the rapidity of learning ninjutsu, made him known as the Kurigakure Prodigy. It was also because of this name that Wuxin entered the vision of the Kurigakure high-level officials and obtained more teaching resources and ninjutsu resources. From Wuxin's current perspective, his teacher, Murayama Yuto, is definitely an experienced and refined jonin. Conventional jonin are no match for him. The third Mizukage gave Wuxin the advanced ninjutsu scroll, which was very satisfying. In a sense, the Kurigakure high-level officials are looking forward to Wuxin's growth, and it can even be said that they are a little painstaking for Wuxin's growth. Little did they know that Wuxin was not bound by the rules and regulations of ninjas, and had no idea of mission supremacy. He treated the assessments during the ninja school as exams. He usually looked respectful to his superiors and loyal to his mission, but in fact, he never gave up the idea of running away. It was only when the like-minded Yagura Gojira took over that Wuxin temporarily abandoned that idea. After taking careful note of the village houses and green trees, Wuxin finally arrived at the Takeuchi weapon shop. At Takeuchi weapon shop, the owner, Takeuchi Taro, sat on a chair at the counter, fanning himself with a small fan, glancing at the street outside the shop from time to time, looking for customers. Hey, this kid, why does he look a bit like? Taro Takeuchi exclaimed, stood up from his chair, leaned over the counter, and looked at Wuxin carefully. Uncle Taro. Wuxin greeted softly and walked into the shop. Wuxin, you are finally back. Taro Takeuchi was surprised at first when he heard the familiar voice, then he was delighted, and immediately stood up and walked towards Wuxin. I haven't seen you for a few months, you have really grown a lot taller, I didn't recognize you at first glance. Taro Takeuchi walked to Wuxin with a smile, and compared his palm to Wuxin's head. This mission is more troublesome and takes a little longer. Have I grown taller? Wuxin looked at Takeuchi Taro, and always felt that his smile was a little conspiratorial. After briefly explaining the mission, Wuxin reached out and touched the top of his head, measuring his height. Wuxin was over 10 years old, and it was the time for him to grow up. He only felt the increase of chakra. Takeuchi Taro, who had not seen him for a few months, noticed that Wuxin had grown taller. Well, he has grown a lot taller. If he was taller, he would have a manly temperament. But let's get back to the point. Wuxin, the orders for banana leaf fans and jade bottles have been backlogged. I controlled the sales volume of the goods. Only 5 banana leaf fans and jade bottles were sold. You have to work hard to make these treasures. After a few pleasantries, Takeuchi Taro immediately talked about business. There was still a sample in the fan shop, which could be played with by customers. There was only 1 jade bottle at present, which was in Wuxin's possession. Understood. I just came back from the mission. I will rest for 2 days and start working in 2 days. Wuxin breathed a sigh of relief. He thought it was a big deal, but it felt like this. At the same time, I felt that people really need some skills. Even though I took such a long leave, my boss Taro Takeuchi didn't have any temper at all. Taro Takeuchi didn't have any temper at all. At this moment, he almost begged Wuxin to make the treasure quickly and deliver it to the customer. Wuxin said that he would start work in 2 days. Takeuchi Taro agreed without hesitation and said, "There are samples of banana leaf fans in the store, but you don't know that. If I hadn't controlled the order volume, I'm afraid hundreds of people would have ordered this fan. Even this sample in the store, people offered 10 times the price to buy it, but I resisted and didn't sell it. We can't make too many of such treasures. The best way is to make a profit. We must not sell at a low profit but at a high volume." Wuxin, you just came back. Have a good rest and start work after you have rested. I will prepare all the materials in 2 days. Taro Takeuchi rubbed his hands while talking. He said that he wanted Wuxin to have a good rest, but he remembered clearly that Wuxin said that he would start work in 2 days and set the date. "Don't worry, Uncle Taro. I won't let you break your promise." Wuxin was infected by his smile and answered Takeuchi Taro with a smile. Wuxin's banana leaf fan has room for improvement. The fan blades can be woven to increase toughness and reach the point where it can reach the level of a weapon. The only one that Wuxin really spent time forging was the one he held. The other fans were basically just engraved with a wind escape whirlwind, or a reduced version of the power. For those who buy the banana leaf fan, the fan can help him a little, but it cannot have a decisive impact. Unlike the one in Wuxin's hand, it consumes a little chakra and can instantly release powerful wind escape ninjutsu, especially against ninjas who are good at wind escape ninjutsu, which has a miraculous effect. Wuxin's words calmed Takeuchi Taro's restless heart. Takeuchi Taro smiled and said, Okay, then I'm relieved. Wuxin, your mission took so long, you must be very tired, right? Go back and rest, and come back to work in the store after you have rested." During the 5 months when Wuxin disappeared, Takeuchi Taro suspected that Wuxin died in the mission, but he couldn't get any news. Takeuchi Taro, who accepted the customer's order, was very worried recently. Wuxin's appearance made his worries disappear. No hurry, Uncle Taro. During the time I was away from the village, did anything big happen in the village? Wuxin changed the subject and asked about the time he was away from the village. During this period, the village was in turmoil with the tailed beasts, and Takeuchi Taro was alive and well, so he should definitely know. You left the village nearly half a year ago, right? 5 months. No wonder. Taro Takeuchi did not answer immediately, but recalled and estimated the time when Wuxin left the village. After thinking for a while, he continued. That was in mid-January. Well, late at night, 2 monsters suddenly appeared in the village. The 2 monsters were very huge. One looked like a turtle, but had 3 tails. The other looked like a slug, but it seemed to have 6 tails on its body, and it was very large. Quote, Takeuchi Taro said, and he opened his hands and gestured, as if to show Wuxin how big the monster was. I can see the appearance of the monsters at home. Fortunately, I am far away, otherwise my house would be destroyed. In short, it's terrible. Takeuchi Taro gestured a few times, and finally made a summary, and at the same time he looked a little scared. Wuxin thought to himself, it turns out that the 3-tailed and 6-tailed monsters are rioting. As for the village's weapon-tailed beasts, I do not have the authority to know these secrets at the moment, as Yagura said. There is no need to know these things. The more you know about this kind of thing, the more trouble you will have. Wuxin understood what the fourth generation Yagura said before. If he knew this kind of confidential matter, he might have to do some tasks to protect the Jinchuriki. It would be more troublesome than not knowing. Wuxin thought for a while and asked. The third generation Mizukage, is that why? Well, the third generation Mizukage led the sealing team to seal the monster in order to protect the village. Because there were two monsters, the Mizukage was distracted and finally sealed the monster at the cost of his life. Taro Takeuchi showed a look of nostalgia and admiration. After speaking, he waved to Wuxin and motioned Wuxin to come closer. Wuxin was a little confused and leaned closer. Let me tell you, many people in the village said that the monster was released on purpose. Otherwise, two people wouldn't appear at the same time. Many people suspect. Taro Takeuchi felt like he was whispering something. He spoke close to Wuxin's ear. He raised his head and looked around. Seeing that there was no one around, he lowered his head and whispered. Many people suspect that Lord Yagura of Goji was the mastermind. However, there are also rumors that the third Mizukage designated Lord Yagura as the fourth generation before his death. I think this rumor is not credible. After all, when the third Mizukage died, there were only a few people around him. And because of the sealing of the monster, the guards around the third Mizukage were killed or injured, leaving only Lord Yagura. So, this kind of thing is complicated if it is not handled well. It's just a rumor. The innocent will be innocent. Wuxin listened, and at the end, he refuted Yagura. At the same time, doubts flashed in his mind. Takeuchi Taro's gossip was well-founded and did not seem to be made out of nothing. Wuxin's words and attitude that favored the fourth generation made Takeuchi Taro a little surprised. He was stunned for a moment and smiled and said, "Oh, I just heard it, don't take it too seriously. We merchants and ordinary villagers usually like to discuss some exaggerated rumors like this, don't take it too seriously. I understand, I agree with some of Lord Yagura's ideas. I'll go back and rest first. I will start forging treasures on time in 2 days." Wuxin explained the reason, then changed the topic, waved his hand, left the store, and walked towards home. This kid, really. Taro Takeuchi saw Wuxin's lack of interest, muttered, and continued to sit in the store, but his eyebrows were no longer worried about the orders. The store was not far from Wuxin's home. Wuxin returned home soon. After comforting the guarding ninja dog Wonkai, he sat on the wooden corridor floor in the yard and pondered. Wuxin understood that such rumors would not come out of thin air. Combined with the mission of the third Mizukage to assassinate Murayama Yuto and the sudden-tailed beast rebellion. The third Mizukage died in battle, or died suddenly, because of sealing the tailed beast. Yagura Goji was appointed to succeed as the fourth Mizukage. It is said that the third Mizukage sealed the tailed beast and finally designated it before his death, but only the third Mizukage and Yagura were at the scene. There may be some complicated things in this. It may also be that the struggle between the Blood Mist diehards and the reformists has become fierce. Yagura looks gentle and reliable. Perhaps he is also a decisive or strategic person in his heart. He found the right opportunity to let the third Mizukage die suddenly, or the tailed beast rebellion was originally planned by someone. After all, the village's tailed beasts did not riot early or late. When the third Mizukage eliminated some of Yagura's subordinates, the tailed beasts suddenly rioted. Wuxin was originally the person who carried out the third Mizukage's mission to cut off Yagura Goji's wings. Although he was just a pawn, he was involved in it anyway, and some things can be inferred. Maybe there are some inside stories, but for someone of my level, it's meaningless to worry about it. Just improve your strength honestly and do your part. In the summer of the 46th year of Kurigakure, the weather is slowly getting hotter. The so-called Third Ninja World War should be in these years, right? Can the Sharingan illusion really control someone who is outstanding in all aspects at the level of Kage? Wuxin recalled his vague memories of his past life, and he knew a lot about some major events. But Kurigakure is not the main place described in that anime after all, and many news are very obscure. Wuxin can only find clues from some fragments he remembers to help Kurigakure not repeat the same mistakes. And there is another premise: he must have the strength to repel the enemy. Secondly, it is Yagura's decrees and actions, just as he said. Blood mist turns into peach blossom land. Those who are always worried must turn into peach blossom land. Wuxin thought about the cause and effect for a while. No matter how you look at it, he must support Yagura. Although he grew up in such an environment, he would do his best if he could change the harsh and inhumane regulations of the blood mist policy. Although the third generation Mizukage is good to him in a sense. But Yagura is not bad either, and his reputation as a prodigy of the hidden mist and a genius ninja has not been ignored. Wuxin, who has strengthened his belief, put away his distracting thoughts, and began to study ninjutsu and rest at home. 2 days passed in a flash. Wuxin returned to work at Takeuchi Weapon Shop. After a day of watching the shop, he closed the shop 2 hours in advance in the evening and came to Takeuchi Taro's mansion to prepare to start forging the treasure. Taro Takeuchi's mansion is spacious and covers a large area. The yard is like a football, with many functional buildings. Wu Xin walked into the yard with ease and saw Taro Takeuchi at a glance. Boss Taro Takeuchi was bending over and arranging banana leaves on the ground. Uncle Taro. Wu Xin walked up and greeted politely. Then he looked at the banana leaves on the ground. Each leaf is wide, and it seems that the toughness of the leaves has been strengthened by weaving. There are traces of weaving on the edges. Hey, here I come. I have arranged the banana leaves and am waiting for you to start working. The ceramic for forging the jade bottle will have to wait for Daisuke Nishino. Taro Takeuchi fiddled with the banana leaves. He was very rigorous in selecting materials. He is indeed a successful weapons merchant. Oh, Nishino Daisuke. Is that the Daisuke who needed the clay to make ceramics? The last time he made the treasure jade purifying bottle, Wuxin noticed that the boss Takeuchi Taro called the farmer Daisuke, but Wuxin didn't know his last name. Yes, it's him. Let's finish the banana leaf fan first. Use this banana leaf first. Quote, Taro Takeuchi said as he picked up a long, square leaf from the banana leaves on the ground. No problem. Wu Xin looked at the leaf in Takeuchi Taro's hand for a few times. It looked like a rectangle. I didn't quite understand his aesthetics, but I didn't say much. The two took the tools and materials and walked to the forging room. The fire in the calcining furnace had been lit, and Takeuchi Taro seemed to have made preparations long ago. Taro Takeuchi skillfully threw wood and fuel into the furnace, and the fire gradually became hot. It gets dark later in summer, and the two were busy forging, and dusk fell unknowingly. Based on the original 5 banana leaf fans ordered, 3 more were made as reserves. 8 banana leaf fans were forged successfully. As long as chakra is input, they can generate strong winds when fanned. The power is much lower than that of Wuxin's first one. After testing, it is only about half the power of the one in Wuxin's hand. Taro Takeuchi is a weapons merchant. He doesn't know much about these forging details. He is very satisfied with the successful production of banana leaf fans. The fans are neatly arranged. Taro Takeuchi picked up this fan and studied it for a while, and then studied and played with that fan for a while. Hey, Boss Taro, it's going to get dark soon. Is it time to start my work? Daisuke Nishino's face is dark. When he came, Wuxin and others were concentrating on forging, and no one received him. Daisuke Nishino has a very honest personality. He waited until Wuxin and Taro Takeuchi finished the forging process before he asked at the right time. Yes, I'm sorry for waiting for a long time. At this time, let's eat first. Quote, Taro Takeuchi was playing with a banana leaf fan at the door of the forging room, overjoyed. As he spoke, a woman happened to walk into the yard with a food box in her hand. Auntie Dama. Wu Xin saw the woman and greeted her obediently. Delma Takeuchi, the wife of Taro Takeuchi, was a very classical and traditional woman. You don't even go to the main hall to eat. Are you so busy? Taro Takeuchi's wife Dama Takeuchi said with a reproachful tone. She put the food box on the stone table in the yard and took out the food in piles. The food was relatively plain, with rice balls as the staple food, accompanied by a few side dishes. I love Auntie Dama's food the most. Quote, Wuxin smiled and complimented, then picked up the rice ball and ate it heartily. Takeuchi Dama glanced at Wuxin, smiled, and turned to leave. Nishino Daisuke was a temporary employee, a ceramic worker in the village. Outside the Hidden Mist village, he also had some fields, and often made some ceramic daily necessities and sold them in the village. This trip not only earned the commission from the big businessman Takeuchi Taro, but also earned a meal, and the previous dissatisfaction with waiting disappeared in an instant. After the three of them had their fill, they started forging again and made all the orders for Takeuchi Weapon Shop. Southeast of Kurigakure village, C3 training ground. A stream not far from the training ground was flowing. Suddenly, a fountain-like wave rose up on the stream, turning into a human-shaped wave, and turned into Wuxen's appearance. Wuxen closed his eyes, maintained the seal of the rabbit with both hands, and stood quietly on the stream. The seal of the rabbit is the ending seal of most water escape ninjutsu. Wuxen comprehended the water escape ninjutsu, and soon opened his eyes. It seems that there are some similarities, but in fact they are irrelevant. Wuxen's face was not worried, and he made a summary in a soft voice. Wuxen is good at water escape ninjutsu, especially the water clone technique and water substitute technique. The water escape ninjutsu of confusion and escape is Wuxen's best skill. After Wuxen's S-level mission was completed, he took a vacation for nearly 3 months. Without any mission assignment, Wuxen was also happy to be free and study ninjutsu. During this period, Wuxen came to this training ground almost every day to practice the simplified version of the water transformation technique and explore the water instant body technique. After several months of practice and exploration, his ninjutsu has improved a lot, but it has not reached the level that Wuxen wants. Water substitute technique. My chakra can help me replace with the water source within 30 meters. In a sense, it can be regarded as a high-speed movement and change of direction. Why can't I freely adjust the position? Wuxen frowned, and felt that he couldn't understand the difficulty of the water instant body technique and couldn't touch the threshold at all. Looking at the similar water substitute technique, Wuxen originally thought that the two had something in common, but after a long period of practice and experimentation, Wuxen understood that the two were completely unrelated. Wuxen, who was puzzled, sighed slightly, clasped his hands together, and his body turned into a pool of water and fell into the stream. The simplified version of the water transformation technique, although not as strong and functional as the Kizuna clan, has become Wuxen's specialty ninjutsu for avoiding physical attacks of weapon types and confusing enemies. In the stream, a group of human-shaped water balls that are somewhat unique and like bubbles are swimming forward in the stream. If you don't look carefully, it is difficult to find the difference. Wuxen turned into a stream, diving and holding his breath in the stream, drifting with the current. Wuxen, soaking in the water and following the stream, felt as if he had really turned into a ball of water, moving freely in the ditch, as if he had really become a part of nature. Wuxen, who was originally troubled by the unsatisfactory practice of ninjutsu, seemed to have entered a special state at this moment, and condensed chakra in a strange way. Wuxen, who turned into a water ball and drifted with the current, disappeared instantly. A water ball suddenly emerged in the stream dozens of meters away, and at the same time Wuxen felt as if he had choked on his saliva, and the water ball surged out of the water and turned into a human form. Ahem. Wuxen, who had turned back into a human, walked ashore while coughing violently, spitting out a lot of stream water. Can I still be choked by water while in the water state? Wuxen lay on the shore with his mouth slightly open. He had practiced the simplified water transformation technique for 3 months and it was very smooth, although he could not partially transform into water, or transform into a water monster like the Kizuna clan. But this sudden transformation of the whole body into water and landing on the ground looked the same as a water clone. Because it was a viscous liquid, it was slightly different from water. However, people who were not careful and did not understand the details of Wuxen's ninjutsu were easily confused, allowing Wuxen to wait for an opportunity to kill him. Wuxen, who had practiced the simple water transformation very smoothly, had experienced the feeling of choking in water for the first time. Wuxen rubbed his chest, and the feeling of being choked by water was relieved a little, and he also noticed a little strange situation. The stream doesn't flow fast, how did I get here so quickly? Wuxen was practicing beside the stream outside the C3 training ground, and he always had a fixed position, in front of a large stone pier, which was also where Wuxen fished. It seemed that Wuxen had only been in the water for a short while, so he shouldn't have flowed so far so quickly. I've never been choked by water before, but that feeling just now. Wuxin recalled the natural feeling of turning into a stream after he turned into the water, and the chakra that he burst out of his mind at that time. That feeling. Wuxin closed his eyes and carefully recalled the feeling at that time. The instant body technique in the water state. No, that's not right. Wuxin opened his eyes suddenly, jumped lightly, jumped into the stream, put his hands together, and his body turned into a small pool of water and fell down. His figure instantly appeared in the stream in front of the stone pier where Wuxin had marked it. The instant movement technique through water. It's not the physical instant movement technique that uses chakra bursts to hide from the naked eye. Wuxin stood on the stream, his face a little solemn. He seemed to have suddenly mastered the ninjutsu of using water to move at high speed. Wuxin reviewed the flow of chakra and the feeling of performing the technique in his mind, and doubled his hands again. He closed his hands. Wow, wow. Above the stream, Wuxin's figure turned into a ball of water and disappeared, then suddenly reappeared in the same place. What was a little strange was that within 30 meters, a ball of water appeared about every 10 meters, and 3 small balls of water quickly scattered and fell into the stream. It's faster than my superb physical skill, the instant body technique, and compared with the water substitute, it has no fixed position and can be used at will. As long as it touches water, it can instantly change its position. So that's it. Wuxin's eyes brightened, and he realized that he had accidentally comprehended the water instant body technique, a ninjutsu-type instant body technique that uses water to move at high speed. Wuxin understood that he had only initially comprehended the high-speed moving water instant body technique, and had not yet reached proficiency. The water ball left in the original place was a superficial proof. To truly refine and master it, it should be like what Murayama Yudo said, that you can instantly appear in the distance by touching water. Although Yudo Murayama did not master the water instant body technique, as a Jonin, he was very skilled in most of the conventional instant body techniques and had an understanding of various types of instant body techniques. Wuxin had discussed instant body techniques with Yudo Murayama, and his deceased parents had also taught him. Instant body techniques, a technique of high-speed movement. In a sense, speed can determine victory or defeat. It is a ninjutsu that Wuxin has practiced hard since childhood. Although Wuxin thought that his instant body technique was combat effective and could attack, stab, and slash at high speed. It is not an easy task to move at high speed and hit the enemy accurately. Although Wuxin worked hard on instant body techniques since childhood, he also understood that his instant body techniques might be very strong among Chunin and Genin. But if he met someone who was good at instant body techniques, his instant body techniques would have no advantage. When he fought with Zabuza Momochi at graduation, Wuxin discovered the weakness of his instant body techniques and could not fight Zabuza's missed instant body techniques. Of course, this is Wuxin's own weakness. Compared with many Genin who have not mastered the technique of instant body movement, or Chunin who have mastered the technique but have not formed combat effectiveness, Wuxin's instant body movement technique can easily deal with them. Water instant body movement technique. Once I master it, there will be a place for me in the future ninja world. Wuxin's thoughts turned. After studying for a long time, he finally mastered the technique of water instant body movement, and he couldn't help but feel confident. Kurigakure village. Early morning. Knock, knock, knock. In the courtyard of Wuxin's house, Wuxin maintained his throwing posture, and several slender senbon accurately hit the red circles on the target. Swish. On the wall of Wuxin's house, a figure appeared in an instant with smoke. The man wore a mask with a water drop logo on his forehead, exuding a cold breath, squatting on the wall. The Mizukage summons you, please go immediately. The words of the Anbu were even colder than his temperament. After the words fell, he squatted quietly, waiting for Wuxin's reply. Kurigakure Anbu. The full name of the listing is Kurigakure Pursuit Tactical Special Forces, which is directly under the command of the Mizukage, roughly equivalent to the Anbu of Konohagakure in the Land of Fire. The ninjas in the village habitually referred to them as Anbu, and most of the staff of the department also called themselves that. Yes, Wuxin answered softly without much hesitation, put on the ninja vest hanging on the side, then jumped onto the courtyard wall, jumped all the way, took a shortcut and went straight to the Mizukage building. After a while, Wuxin arrived at the Mizukage building. On the 4th floor of the Mizukage building, outside the Mizukage's office, Wuxin knocked on the door. Come in, Mr. Mizukage. Wuxin greeted softly as he pushed the door open, and at the same time noticed that there was a middle-aged man with fair skin standing in the office. The middle-aged man had some wrinkles on his face, and his hairstyle was the same as Wuxin's. His long black hair naturally fell on his shoulders, and he looked like an aristocrat. Yagura sat in the office chair, with a casual attitude. He looked Wuxin up and down, nodded and said softly, "Well, it seems that he is almost as tall as me, and he is in good spirits. Lord Mizukage, if my eyes are normal, this person's height should be much taller than you." The middle-aged noble standing calmly in the office responded, but his words were a bit direct. The most hurtful words are those about height. Wuxin didn't dare to respond at all, pretending not to hear, standing silently, waiting for the task. Wuxin's chakra has increased rapidly recently, and he changed his clothes once because he felt they were too small, but he didn't measure them specifically. "Your vision is problematic, otherwise why would you come here?" Yakura didn't tolerate it, and said something, then changed the subject and said, "This is the Kurigakure prodigy, the genius ninja Wuxin. I don't need to say much about his deeds. If this mission is given to him, there will definitely be no mistakes. Mr. Junsuk, what do you think?" Wuxin looked at the task client named Junsuk. From their conversation, Wuxin could hear that the relationship between the Mizukage Yakura and him should be good. Kurigakure demon, Kurigakure prodigy, well, I know their deeds. However, wouldn't it be better to hand this mission over to a reliable jonin? The middle-aged man named Junsuk nodded, expressing his recognition of Wuxin's name and the Kurigakure demon Momochi Zabuza's name. After just glancing at Wuxin, he still hoped that Yakura could send a reliable jonin to do it. If the famous jonin in the village takes action, it will definitely attract the attention and vigilance of the other party. It will be better if Wuxin takes action. This is a very reliable ninja, Junsuk, you can relax. Yakura gently refused and insisted on sending Wuxin to carry out the task. Wuxin, standing in the office, was a little confused and didn't know the situation very well. He only knew that it seemed that it would be better for a jonin to come forward for this task, so it would definitely not be an easy task. "Okay, as you said." Under Yakura's insistence, the client Junsuk finally agreed. "Wuxin, this task is very important, I hope you won't let me down." After seeing the client agree, Yakura turned his head to look at Wuxin, picked up a scroll from the table and shot it directly to Wuxin. Wuxin felt that the two were singing a double act, and had no idea what they were talking about. He easily caught the scroll shot by the Mizukage and opened it directly to read it. Wuxin's face gradually became serious. After reading the scroll word by word, he slowly closed it and thought. A double act, or did Yagura think too highly of me? Can I handle this kind of thing alone? Wuxin tapped his eyebrows with his right hand and rubbed them gently. After thinking for a while, he said in a deep voice. "Well, this kind of task is a piece of cake." Finally, Wuxin put on the posture of a genius ninja and pretended to answer the Mizukage. Wuxin looked at the middle-aged man named Shunsuke and said in a deep voice. "Mr. Yuki Shunsuke, I will cooperate with you to the fullest, please rest assured." Yuki Shunsuke, the chief of the Snow Clan. According to legend, the Snow Clan and the Hidden Mist Village have a tense relationship. Wuxin carefully looked at the chief of the Snow Clan and watched his conversation with Yagura. The two sides seemed to be very familiar with each other, without any tension at all. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the two had a very good relationship. Shui Shunsuke nodded and said slowly. "Well, cooperate with each other. I will be responsible for containment, and you will be responsible for beheading. This is the only chance. Otherwise, Yuki Kazemaru seems reckless, but in fact he is alert and cunning, and he will never be fooled a second time." S-level assassination mission, assassination target, Yuki Kazemaru, the elder of the Snow Clan. Yuki Kazemaru, 20 years old, has just served as the elder of the Snow Clan for a year. His style is more radical than the original elder, that is, Yuki Kazemaru's grandfather, and he is more repulsive to the Hidden Mist Village. He is a radical leader who advocates dividing the Water Kingdom with the Hidden Mist Village. Yuki Kazemaru, a representative of the friendship between the Snow Clan and the Hidden Mist Village, advocates that the family integrate into the Hidden Mist Village and learn from the Uchiha. Hyuga and other families of the Fire Country Konohagakure, so that while maintaining their own identity, they can also have a big backer. The reason why the Hidden Mist Village and the Snow Clan have not yet fought is all thanks to Yuki Shunsuke's mediation. The family has been passed down for thousands of years and has many factions. Even though he is the clan leader and wants to join the Hidden Mist Village. But he cannot completely unify the opinions of the clan. The independent faction and the integration faction are in endless dispute and confrontation. It is probably just a matter with the hawks and doves of a certain family in the Land of Fire. The style of the chief elder of the Snow Clan is becoming more and more unorthodox, and he has even sent people to assassinate Yuki Shunsuke many times. Yuki Shunsuke can't do anything to the chief elder Yukikazumaru, and he has a very good relationship with Yagura. Yagura became the fourth-generation Mizukage, and he came to the Hidden Mist Village to ask Yagura for help. Wuxin can understand this situation very well. After all, the story of a large family in the Land of Fire with many factions and its eventual destruction has made countless people sigh. Please rest assured, since we have mastered the intelligence of the other party's ninjutsu, we will definitely be able to kill them with one surprise. Wuxin's face is indifferent, as if this task is just a small matter. There is no other way. After reading the task scroll, you must complete it. Even if Wuxin wants to refuse, there is no way back. It is better to show off and win some favor and attention. This attitude of treating S-level tasks as nothing gave Shui Shunsuke and Yagura great confidence. S-level tasks should not be underestimated. Although Yagura's words were meant to remind and warn, the smile on his face and the corners of his mouth that he could not suppress at all showed that he was in a very good mood. Shui Shunsuke, the head of the Snow Clan, looked Wuxin up and down and nodded slightly. No matter what Wuxin's ability is, this confidence has won his recognition. What's more, there is the strong recommendation of the fourth Mizukage. Hidden Mist Village, Takeuchi Weapon Shop. Wuxin took a long sword from the wall full of weapons in the shop. Clang! Wuxin pulled out half of the blade, looked at it for a few times, and showed satisfaction in his eyes. He put the sword back into the sheath and said loudly to the boss Takeuchi Taro, who was sitting at the counter. Uncle Takeuchi, take this ninja sword away, put it in the account. You are really good at choosing. Can you wield this sword with your body shape? Takeuchi Taro glanced at the sword held by Wuxin. His eyes were a little suspicious, but he was very good at accounting, and wrote down the long sword item number, price, and buyer in the account book. Give it to someone. My little arms and legs, how can I use such a thing? Let's go. Wuxin replied, then put the sword on his back and strode out of the weapon shop. Wuxin walked towards the east of the village without rushing or slowing down, and arrived at his destination in a short while. Wuxin stood outside the yard of a residential villa and looked at the house number. No, 599, East District, is this the place? After confirming that it was correct, Wuxin knocked on the door. In less than 2 seconds, the courtyard door opened. Murayama Yudo, who opened the door very quickly, glanced at Wuxin and said lightly, Come in, come in. After Murayama Yudo finished speaking, he jumped a few times and jumped onto the wooden porch next to the house. Hey, wait, that step doesn't count. My disciple is here, and I was in a hurry to open the door, so I accidentally bumped into it. Murayama Yudo's impetuousness made Wuxin a little puzzled. Wuxin walked into the yard and took a look at the yard. The area was spacious, with several lush green trees planted. The main building was a 2-story structure, and there was a porch outside the door on the first floor. On the porch, Murayama Yudo and a thin man sat opposite each other, with a chessboard placed in the middle. The index fingers of the two seemed to be on the same chess piece. Wuxin walked towards the two people playing chess. The thin man turned his head to look at Wuxin, then retracted his gaze, pushed the chess piece held by his right index finger back, and said softly, No regrets after making a move, Yudo. Regret a move? Am I that kind of person? This was an accidental touch, it doesn't count. Murayama Yudo looked calm, and pushed the index finger holding the chess piece towards his side of the chessboard. The thin man did not give in at all, and his index finger touched the front half of the chess piece, while Murayama Yudo touched the back half. Wuxin felt that the chessboard seemed to be shaking. Wuxin looked at the chess piece they were holding, and from the gap between their hands, he could see that the chess piece was a flying horn, a chess piece in shogi similar to a rook. Ahem, teacher, I brought the long sword you wanted, and the price is 50,000 taels. But as an employee of the weapon shop, I enjoy a 50% discount, so I only need to pay 25,000 taels. Wu Xin said as he took off the long sword on his back. On the way, he didn't hold it firmly, and the long sword fell and landed on the chessboard. Bang! With a bang, the long sword hit the chessboard, causing all the chess pieces on the chess to be in a mess. Sorry, I didn't mention the sword much. Wu Xin apologized quickly, squatted down, picked up the sword, and handed it to Murayama Yudo on the left. You're so impatient. Murayama Yudo's face was stern. He took the long sword, looked back at the chessboard, sighed, and said, Forget it, let's call this game a draw, right? The thin man's eyes widened, he looked at the chessboard, then looked up at Murayama Yudo, and finally turned to look at Wu Xin. The thin man took a breath, smiled, and shook his head gently. According to the trend, you will definitely lose. However, the situation was disrupted by an accident, and the outcome is unknown, so let's just call it a draw. At the end, his tone was a little helpless. Murayama Yudo seemed to be in a good mood, and said with a smile. Oh, a draw is a draw, really, why are you so serious? Look, this is my birthday gift for you. Murayama Yudo said, and handed the long sword he bought from Wuxin to the thin man. Wuxin watched quietly, the two behaved very familiarly. Wuxin was a little curious about the relationship between this man and Murayama Yudo. Birthday gift. The thin man stretched out his left hand with some emotion and took the long sword. From the moment he got the sword, the lazy temperament on the man disappeared instantly, and Wuxin, who was standing aside, suddenly felt his hair stand up. What's going on with this feeling? Wuxin narrowed his eyes, puzzled and secretly alert. The thin man's eyes were sharp, and he slowly scanned the long sword, from the handle of the long sword to the end of the scabbard, as if he was looking at some treasure. Suddenly, the man sighed, put the long sword on the chessboard, and returned to laziness, saying softly, Holding the sword, I will think of. He seemed to remember something, paused, and changed the subject. Ninja, this kind of life is really boring. The feeling that made Wuxin feel dangerous, and disappeared as the long sword was put down. Wuxin secretly guessed that this thin man must be a ninja with extraordinary swordsmanship, and asked Murayama Yudo beside him. Teacher, who is this? Murayama Yudo looked peaceful and smiled. Takami Yoshiyuki, my teammate during the Genin period, and also my best friend. Suddenly, as if remembering something, Murayama Yudo turned to look at Wuxin, his face changed, and he said seriously. As for the long sword payment, it will be deducted from the next mission. Ah, Wuxin was surprised for a moment and nodded. Yes, it should be. The thin man Takami Yoshiyuki saw the conversation between the teacher and the student, and a teasing smile appeared on his face. You still like to tease your subordinates so much. After so many years, there is really no change. Ah, there is still change. With our efforts, the blood mist has dissipated. Murayama Yudo's words are meaningful. Gao Jianisheng's smile slowly faded, and he lowered his head to look at the long sword on the chessboard, and said, Has the blood mist dissipated? It sounded like a question, or like he was talking to himself. It has dissipated. Those tragedies will never happen again. Murayama Yudo spoke softly, as if persuading, or comforting. Strangely, Wuxin felt his hair stand on end again, but this time he noticed the source of his uneasiness. Gao Jianisheng, who was sitting cross-legged below, had a blank expression on his face, and his cold eyes seemed to contain a heavy sense of violence, as well as resentment. I can see that this sword was made by a skilled craftsman. 50,000 taels is a good value for money. Gao Jianisheng lifted the long sword on the chessboard with his left hand, and stood up while speaking. Gao Jianisheng walked down the eaves of the corridor, looked at the big tree with lush branches and leaves in the courtyard, and stood still. After a long time, he turned his head and looked at Yudo Murayama, expressionless, and said, The blood mist has dissipated, can the dead come back to life? Yuyuki, the dead cannot be resurrected. I am also very sorry for Yumi's death. But all this is in the past. We must look to the future. There was visible pain and helplessness in Yudo Murayama's eyes. Yumemi, future. Takami Yoshiyuki whispered softly, and slowly grasped the hilt of the knife with his right hand. Umemi. Future. Takami Yoshiyuki whispered, slowly grasping the hilt with his right hand. Clang. The cold light flashed, and the tree more than 10 meters high in the yard instantly split into two halves, staggering to both sides. Can chakra be released in this form? Is this a ninjutsu or a sword technique? Wuxin, who was standing by, was stunned when he saw this scene. Takami Yoshiyuki pointed the tip of the long sword in his right hand to the ground, gently made a sword flower, and returned the long sword to the sheath, saying softly, Umemi's wish is to end the blood mist. That night, I used the sword, together with her belief Yagura, to make the hazy blood mist fade away. Future, I will always pursue her ideal. Takami Yoshiyuki said at the end, looking at Murayama Yudo with a gentle and calm look. Murayama Yudo heaved a sigh of relief, patted his chest in a somewhat artificial manner, and said, You scared me, really. Takami Yoshiyuki pouted and said with a smile, I learned this from you. After that, he walked back to the eaves of the corridor, sat down cross-legged, straightened the chessboard, and picked up the chess pieces that fell on the wooden board. Wuxin stood aside like a servant, and when he saw that Murayama Yudo's friend Takami Yoshiyuki's mood had stabilized, he spoke. Teacher, the long sword has been delivered, I'm leaving, there is still a mission. After Wuxin finished speaking, he waved to his teacher Murayama Yudo and walked towards the gate. Wait, Murayama Yudo called Wuxin to stop. Wuxin turned around and looked at Murayama Yudo, with doubt in his eyes. Murayama Yudo looked at Wuxin quietly, and after a short silence, he said softly. Ah, it's okay, go ahead, be careful, don't be careless. Yes, Wuxin replied softly, gave Murayama Yudo a smile, and left. Takami Yoshiyuki on the eaves looked at this scene and smiled. Disciple, good vision. Disciple and student, the two identities are very different. As a Jonin, he is only responsible for guiding the students to become familiar with the ninja life and teaching them a few ninjutsu. After the students are promoted to Chunin, the teaching is over. Disciple is the successor who teaches everything he knows. Most Jonin have one or two unique ninjutsu, and the disciple is the one who inherits the teacher's mantle. While fiddling with chess pieces, Yudo Murayama said, I have always had a good eye. Wuxin is a very talented ninja, and he is alert, calm and sophisticated. However, when it comes to ninja talent, as a teacher, I sometimes feel troubled. After teaching my apprentice for more than a year, I no longer have any ninjutsu to teach him. Wuxin left the east district of the village and headed straight for Takeuchi weapon shop. After receiving the mission yesterday, Wuxin came to the weapon shop in the morning to prepare the ninja equipment for departure. It was just that he saw a letter left by Yudo Murayama in the mailbox at the door of his house last night, so he completed the commission of his teacher Yudo Murayama in the morning and sent him a long sword. Wuxin hurried all the way back to Takeuchi weapon shop, and when he came to the shop, he packed up the ninja equipment with ease. Taro Takeuchi, who was sitting at the counter, held a small green fan in his hand, fanning while watching Wuxin busy. Seeing that Wuxin was just packing up some kunai, shuriken and the like, Takeuchi Taro couldn't help but say. Take a ninja sword with you. My ninja sword, don't sell it for a lot of money, it's actually very good. With two of them on your back, you can scare the enemy down without using any weapons. Uncle, I'm a ninja, I'm only good at using kunai and shuriken, I can't use ninja swords. Wuxin placed several rows of kunai on the ground and sealed them one by one with a sealing scroll. While busy, he answered Takeuchi Taro. Wuxin's martial arts fighting only knows some fighting techniques taught by ninja schools, kunai fighting techniques. These techniques taught by ninja schools have been tested, simple and easy to use. Wuxin had also thought about studying sword techniques and the like, but he didn't have a master to guide him, so he didn't even practice basic sword techniques. Compared with ninjutsu, physical techniques require more stringent practice in daily life. If you only master sword techniques but don't practice them often, they will only be a show. Then bring more detonating tags and poison balls. Taro Takeuchi didn't know what level of mission Wuxin was going to perform, but just asked Wuxin to bring more equipment. I've packed it. Wuxin sat on the floor of the store and tied the poison ball to the ring on the kunai with wire. For this mission, Wuxin had a clear understanding of the difficulty of the mission. The information about the mission target Yukikazemaru on the mission scroll made people lose the desire to fight. The target Yukikazemaru is good at wind escape, water escape, blood limit ice escape ninjutsu, good at physical skills, Yukikaze-style boxing, and is very knowledgeable about illusions. He is described as a hexagonal warrior. The client Yuki Shunsuke will return from the Kurigakure the day after tomorrow to attract Yukikazemaru to ambush him. According to the client, Yuki Shunsuke, although Yukikazemaru behaves eccentrically and has no bottom line, he is very cautious about his own safety and has many guards around him. Yuki Shunsuke believes that even if he acts as bait, Yukikazemaru may not take action personally, and may send a group of subordinates to ambush him. And Wuxin's mission is to sneak into the Shui clan's territory and kill Yukikazemaru, who has no guards around him. It's just about the information about Yukikazemaru's ninjutsu. Wuxin looks at the series of A-level ninjutsu described on the scroll, and is very self-aware and knows that he is not his opponent. It can be said that the most difficult task was given to Wuxin. Wuxin sat on the floor, preparing ninja tools while thinking about it. After a busy period, he finally completed the preparations. Wuxin looked at the hundreds of kunai tied with poison balls and felt a little relieved. 3 absolute poisons, poisons that will kill within 12 hours, only this can give Wuxin the confidence to complete the task. All the poison balls are added with a little 3 absolute poison, which is detonated with chakra and mixed into the ordinary poison mist. With so many poisons, are you going to fight? Taro Takeuchi, who was fanning himself, looked at the large number of weapons prepared by Wuxin, and the detonating talismans and poison balls were spread all over the ground. He seemed to realize the difficulty of Wuxin's task, frowned, and added, "Use this to install it." Taro Takeuchi said, got up from his seat, took down a large scroll hanging on the wall, and placed it next to Wuxin. "Are you willing to give this to me?" Wuxin was a little surprised when he saw this scroll. Sealing scrolls, the most in-demand ninja tools, can be said to be in short supply, especially this kind of large sealing scroll. This one hanging on the wall is a toy for the Takeuchi weapon shop to show customers, not for sale. I found a new source of goods, and I can buy this kind of large seal scroll. Take it and use it. Taro Takeuchi gently waved his fan, his tone nonchalant. Then I won't be polite. Wuxin spread out the large seal scroll, sealed the kunai and other ninja tools into it, and at the same time began to wrap the kunai with detonating talismans. After a busy period, Wuxin completed the weapon preparation and hung the large scroll horizontally on his waist. "Let's go, uncle." Wuxin said goodbye to Taro Takeuchi and walked straight to the gate of the Hidden Mist village. Night. On a certain mountain peak, Wuxin stood in front of a cliff, flipping through the map in his hand with the help of moonlight, and looked down from time to time, looking at a somewhat blurred fortress in the mountains below, thinking, "That should be Shangshe village." The Snow Clan is a ninja clan entrenched in the cold zone in the northeast of the Snow Country. The clan built Shangshe village in the White Mountain. Shangshe village is in a dangerous terrain, and there is only a narrow plank road to enter the village, which is very dangerous for ordinary people. There are several villages at the foot of the White Mountain, the most famous of which is Fubuki Town. The Snow Clan has an office in Fubuki Town to accept mission commissions, and most of the ordinary people of the Snow Clan live in Fubuki Town. And Shangshe village is the gathering point of the Snow Clan ninjas and the place where ninjas are trained. It is similar to the existence of the Hidden Mist village, but the scale of ninjas is not as large as that of the Hidden Mist village. Wuxin has been observing for a few days in the secret place of the plank road. A large number of ninjas went down the mountain in the village today and did not return at night. It is likely that they set out to ambush the leader of the Snow Clan, Shui Junji. Wuxin knew that now was the best time to sneak in. Wuxin, who had made up his mind, no longer hesitated. Chakra condensed his feet and walked directly down the cliff, walked on the cliff, and headed towards the village. After climbing mountains and crossing ridges, he arrived near the gate of the village. The fence of the village wall was about 200 meters from east to west. On the gate of the village, there were several ninja-like people patrolling back and forth. Wuxin followed the map and came to the westernmost corner of the village. He lurked in the dark. When he saw the patrolman walked to the corner and turned away, Wuxin jumped out from the dark, stood in front of the corner of the fence, and made a seal with his hands. After about 10 seals, Wuxin pressed his right hand on the fence wall. A strange water wave appeared on the fence wall, and then it turned into a transparent barrier. The transparent barrier was about 2 meters long and wide, in a circular shape, and there was a circular gap of about 1 meter in the middle. Wuxin's operation did not make any sound, and the barrier affected was only a few meters nearby. Several patrols turned their backs to the guards here and did not notice it at all. It's different with an insider, otherwise it would not be so easy to sneak in. Wuxin sighed secretly, and jumped lightly, jumping into it from the gap. The originally blurred village became clear in an instant. Wuxin jumped a few times, left the wall fence, and sneaked into the village. There are many houses in the village, the roads are neatly built, and there are street lights on the roadside. Looking inside the houses from the windows, most of them are dark and quiet. After sneaking in from the corner of the door, go straight along the road for 400 meters. The luxurious single-family villa with a courtyard as the residence of the target Shuifengmaru. Wuxin went through the intelligence information in his mind, and quietly moved forward along the road. After a while, he touched the courtyard of a luxurious villa. Wuxin stood outside the courtyard, put his hands together to form the seal of the unknown, closed his eyes, and performed the perception technique. There is only one person in the house, and he is lying down. He has weak chakra in his body. When he is asleep, his body should not be able to refine chakra for storage. Wuxin sensed the person in the house and understood that this person was the target of the mission, but he was a little confused about the chakra in this person's body. However, the biggest sigh was that this trip went smoothly. As expected by Shui Junji, the patriarch of the Shui clan, all the people were sent to ambush him, leaving only the target. Although there were people in the nearby houses, most of the houses had 1 or 2 people lying down, obviously sleeping, like a couple in a family. As for why there was no family of 3, perhaps they had sent people to carry out the mission. After all, the Snow Clan's chief and the Great Elder had already set up their positions and were fighting each other. Is he asleep or not? Wu Xin, standing in the darkness outside the yard, was a little confused. Within the range of the perception technique, most of the other people were just outlines, and no chakra could be detected. They were obviously in a state of relaxation and sleep. Only the target of the mission, Shuifengmaru, had weak chakra in his body. Maybe he was still awake. It would be better to assassinate him when the other party was completely unprepared. Wu Xin hesitated for a moment. Wu Xin waited patiently for about 10 minutes, and used the perception technique again to detect. As before, there was obvious chakra in the target's body, although it was very weak. Wu Xin waited again, and after about 10 minutes, he used the perception technique again. As before, Wu Xin found something wrong this time. The chakra is weak and stable. Yukikazumaru's chakra must not be so weak. Falling asleep, but still keeping alert, Wuxin used the perception technique to check Yukikazumaru 3 times in half an hour. His chakra was in the same state. Wuxin made a judgment and jumped lightly into the yard. Wuxin approached the house lightly, and his chakra absorbed the wall and went up to the 2nd floor, quietly touching the outside of the mission target's room. Wuxin Xin gently turned the doorknob, making a faint sound, but fortunately the target was not awakened. He gently pushed the door open, and after his body could enter the room, Wuxin flashed into the house. The room was dark, and the moonlight shone into the room a little when the door was opened. Wuxin could see the bed and the man covered with a thin blanket on the bed. Wuxin, who had successfully sneaked in, gently touched the edge of the bed, slowly took out the kunai from the ninja tool bag, and stared at the mission target Shuifengmaru on the bed. Shuifengmaru had black hair, which was coiled on his head with a hairpin. He had a handsome face, his eyes were closed, and his skin was a little abnormal, even crystal clear. Even if Shuifengmaru fell asleep, Wuxin could feel his majesty and get a glimpse of his face when he was giving orders on weekdays. Wuxin raised the kunai, held the handle with both hands, adjusted his breathing, aimed at the target's throat below, and stabbed it hard. At the same time, the target of the mission, Yukikazumaru, who had his eyes closed tightly, seemed to sense the danger and opened his eyes instantly. Ding! Wuxin's kunai pierced Yukikazumaru's throat firmly, but it was like piercing steel. After a crisp sound of metal clashing, Wuxin's kunai was bounced off. Wuxin glanced at Yukikazumaru's throat and saw a white spot. Wuxin was stunned and reacted quickly. He quickly stabbed Yukikazumaru's eyes with the kunai. Ding! The target of the mission, Yukikazumaru, also reacted very quickly. He raised his arm to block the stab of the kunai. The kunai still left a white spot on Yukikazumaru's arm. Seeing this, Wuxin jumped to the door without saying a word and threw 2 shurikens with grass rings at Yukikazumaru. Without even looking at the result, he slammed the door and ran away. Wuxin ran out of the door, clasped his hands together, and shouted softly. Explode! Puff! In the room, there was a low sound of air leakage, and at the same time a purple mist filled the whole room. Since you are here, why are you leaving? With a teasing whisper, Shuifengmaru jumped out of the room. His skin was crystal clear and became even whiter. Then the snow-white skin fell to the ground and gradually melted. Shuifengmaru's skin returned to the white range of normal people, not as crystal clear as before. Wuxin heard the sound and looked back. He happened to see this scene and understood the reason why the other party was invulnerable. It turned out that the weak chakra he sensed before was the defensive ninjutsu that the other party maintained even when sleeping. Chapter 71. Wuxin heard the sound and looked back. He saw this scene and understood why the other party was invulnerable. It turned out that the weak chakra he had sensed before was the defensive ninjutsu that the other party maintained even when sleeping. Wuxin looked at it for a few times, returned along the way he came, and ran quickly. In a hurry to escape from the mountain village, Wuxin didn't care about the barrier and rushed out directly from the air of the mountain village gate. In mid-air, Wuxin's figure caused strange ripples at the mountain village gate tower, as if it was protruding from the water. Who is it? Several shouts were heard on the mountain village wall. Wuxin turned around in mid-air and saw Shuifengmaru chasing behind him, as well as several guards on the city gate tower. Without saying a word, he shot a burst of kunai at the city gate tower. After landing, he turned around and ran down the mountain without looking at the result. Did he inhale the poisonous fog in the room? Wuxin guessed as he ran. Having read the information about Yukikazumaru's ninjutsu, Wuxin knew that he was no match for him and that he would die if he fought him. The best strategy was to use poisonous kunai to fly a kite. It's a hindrance. You guys continue to guard while I go after the invader. Yukikazumaru on the city gate tower easily dodged Wuxin's kunai and chased after Wuxin, while whistling away several guards. Yukikazumaru had a dignified look. The assassin was able to quietly enter the mountain stronghold and assassinate him. He didn't want to pursue the issue of these guards for the time being. He also had a general judgment of the assassin's strength. He couldn't break through his ninjutsu defense and his strength was obviously average. He wanted to catch the assassin and interrogate him personally. Yukikazumaru chased quickly and chased Wuxin all the way. Wuxin ran in front and he chased behind. Wuxin's instant body technique was quite advanced, and it was extremely fast. With the help of the instant body technique, Yukikazumaru could keep following him, but he couldn't catch up easily. The two sides were caught in a chakra competition. Wuxin ran all the way and came to a small river in the mountains. He stopped and turned around to face Yukikazumaru who was chasing him. This small river was the escape route Wuxin planned when he was investigating. The river flows from the mountain to the bottom of the mountain, and there are several streams in the middle. Although the water flow is average and some places are even dry, Wuxin has the help of the jade bottle. If he really wants to escape, he can use the jade bottle to release water and follow the river or ditch. Wuxin feels that escaping should not be a problem. Shuifengmaru chased all the way. When he saw Wuxin stopped, he did not attack rashly, but also stopped. He was about 10 meters away from Wuxin. He looked Wuxin up and down. Seeing that Wuxin was unfamiliar, he frowned slightly. Isn't he from the clan? Wuxin was wearing a vest of the Kurigakure ninja and a forehead protector. Although the ninjas of the Snow clan were very independent, the ninjas in the clan also wore Kurigakure forehead protectors, and those above the Chunin level also wore Kurigakure vests. Although the Water Country Ninja clan was divided into many mountains, in name, all the ninjas of the clan were under the jurisdiction of Kurigakure, and the clothing logos could still be unified. Otherwise, the two sides would have gone to war long ago. No, Wuxin responded crisply, and at the same time carefully observed Shuifengmaru's appearance. His skin was the same as before, crystal clear and white as snow, which was very abnormal. There is no one like you among the Jonins of the Hidden Mist village. You are so young, and you dare to come to the upper snow village to act wild. You really don't know how to live or die. Shui Fengmaru carefully looked at Wuxin for a few times and confirmed that he was not from his clan. There was no one like him among the Jonins of the Hidden Mist village. After making a judgment, he shook his head slightly, which seemed a bit regretful. Hee, you fell into my trap and didn't know it. The top master of the Snow Clan is just like this. Wuxin sneered, and as he spoke, he put his hands together and activated the long-prepared technique, thinking in his heart. Magic. Water drowning technique. Shui Fengmaru saw Wuxin's action, and before he could react, a violent fountain gushed out from under his feet, swallowing the whole person. What is this? Shui Fengmaru, who was wrapped and swallowed by the fountain water, held his breath. After a brief surprise, he quickly regained his calm. After the fountain water submerged Shui Fengmaru, the fountain water flow became more violent, and the gushing fountain water flow rose and rotated like a tornado. Shui Fengmaru suddenly felt that he had lost control of his body. His body was drifting with the vortex and he felt dizzy. Cough. Holding his breath, Shui Fengmaru coughed suddenly. Water rushed into his mouth and nose. He was choked by the water and suddenly fell into a drowning state. He danced with joy. After Wuxin put his hands together and activated the illusion, he saw Shui Fengmaru standing there stupidly. His eyes were sometimes dull and sometimes terrified, as if he was trapped in an illusion. Wuxin quickly formed seals with both hands, and finally his left hand formed the seal of the unknown. He stretched out his right hand, and a ball of water appeared in his palm, and he rushed forward at the same time. Wuxin just rushed forward and stopped. The model of the water-toothed sword condensed in the palm of his right hand, also they collapsed instantly. This man is very powerful, so it's better to be cautious. Wuxin thought to himself and gave up the plan to behead him with the water blade. He lifted up the large seal scroll behind his waist with both hands, reached into the ninja tool bag under his belt, held 3 kunai with detonating talismans in each hand, and shot them at Yukikazemaru's feet. Yukikazemaru was protected by ninjutsu armor, so he couldn't be shot to avoid waking him up. 6 kunai with detonating talismans were stuck under Yukikazemaru's feet, and Wuxin put his hands together. Explode. Boom. In the night, a dazzling orange-red fire lit up, and a large amount of smoke and dust surged. Wuxin's strategy worked, but he still didn't relax his vigilance. He put his hands together, closed his eyes, and activated the perception technique. You don't know if you don't perceive it. Once you perceive it, you will be shocked. Yukikazemaru is actually in the smoke 2 meters in front of Wuxin. For a ninja, it is very close. Wuxin opened his eyes suddenly, and quickly jumped back, trying to jump into the stream, but his back hit a somewhat cold wall. Wuxin, who fell to the ground after hitting the wall, quickly looked back, and saw that several ice walls had appeared behind him at some point. The smoke caused by the detonation talisman gradually dissipated, and Shui Fengmaru's figure appeared, standing 2 meters in front of Wuxin, just at the edge of the smoke. The drowning technique is good, but it's over. Shui Fengmaru looked at Wuxin calmly, and said the illusion Wuxin used, while maintaining a somewhat special seal with both hands. As he spoke, the ice wall behind Wuxin quickly spread and extended, and in the air, in front of Shui Fengmaru, ice walls suddenly appeared. Ice escape barrier. Ice prison hall no. With Shui Fengmaru's light shout, the ice wall quickly extended, and all the ice walls were connected into one piece, turning into an inverted bowl-shaped ice house. It was pitch black inside the igloo. Wuxin looked solemn. He took out a fire starter from the tactical pocket of his vest, lit it, and looked around the igloo. The temperature in the igloo was extremely low. After Wuxin looked around the igloo, he took out a few kunai and shot at the walls in several directions. Ding, ding, ding. With a few dings, some of the kunai were bounced off the wall, and some were pierced into the wall. There were several white spots on the wall of the igloo where the kunai was bounced off. Wuxin looked up and down. In the kunai shooting just now, Wuxin attacked 10 directions, front and back, left front and left back, right front and right back, and only the top, back, and right back directions were penetrated by the kunai. The ice wall seemed to have the ability to repair, and the kunai that was pierced into the wall was slowly squeezed out. Don't waste your energy. I don't know how many ninjas have been trapped to death by this ice escape barrier of mine. Don't worry, I will treat you well after your chakra is sucked dry by me. Although the igloo was closed, the sound of Shuifengmaru outside could still be heard. Chakra is dissipating, and, very fast. Without Shuifengmaru's reminder, Wuxin also felt the dissipation of chakra. However, the more this happened, the more Wuxin confirmed the weakness of this technique, which should be similar to the weakness of the earth escape barrier, Tsuchigudo. Ding! The kunai behind Wuxin that was stabbed into the wall was finally squeezed out by the wall and fell to the ground. Whether it was the white spots on the wall shot by the kunai or the gaps where the kunai was stabbed, they were restored to their original state, as smooth as new. Looking at the wall of the igloo behind him where the kunai was squeezed out, Wuxin knew that this was the weak point. He took down the seal scroll behind him and spread it on the ground, opened the front of the scroll a little, and pressed his right hand on the scroll paper covered with words. With a bang, he summoned a stack of detonating talismans. 100 detonating talismans. I won't blow myself up, will I? Wu Xin held a stack of detonating talismans in his hand, thought about it secretly, and took action after a little hesitation. He divided the detonating talismans into 5 parts and pasted them on the weak points of the wall in the way of up, down, left, right and center. Then he retreated to the other side of the ice house against the wall, put his hands together, and shouted softly. Explode! With a loud bang, the black smoke in the ice house rushed out of the ice house, and the weak point found by Wu Xin was blown to pieces by the detonating talismans. The place where the ice house was blown up recovered very quickly, and it was restored to its original state in less than 2 seconds. But Wu Xin was faster. After the gap was blown out, he rushed out of the ice house with the instant body technique, and came to the river with 2 consecutive instant body techniques. He dived into the river and went downstream along the river. The strongest part of this ninjutsu was the position where the caster Shuifengmaru stood. Shuifengmaru stood on the other side of Binglaotengwu, and his vision was blocked by the ice house. You found the weakness so quickly. You carry so many detonating tags with you. Accompanied by the explosion, the chakra that was originally continuously supplied by the ice prison hull Wu was cut off, and with the dissipating black smoke, Shuifengmaru realized that Wuxin had escaped the ninjutsu barrier and was slightly surprised. Shuifengmaru cancelled the chakra that maintained the ice prison hull Wu, and the ice house melted quickly and disappeared. Then the two of them jumped lightly and came to the river. They looked at the direction of the river flow and realized that Wuxin was escaping along the river flow. If you dare to assassinate me, why do you have to run away? Do you think you can escape with the help of the river? Shuifengmaru said jokingly, running towards the downstream of the river, and at the same time forming seals with both hands. Ice escape. Freezing ball technique. Shuifengmaru ran downstream, accompanied by a light shout, and put the index and middle fingers of his right hand together and stood upright at the corner of his mouth. With a light blow, a huge white wind ball blew out. The white wind blew into the water surface, and the water surface quickly froze. What was even more terrifying was that after the ice cut off the river channel, the river water froze all the way down along the direction of the white wind. Wuxin, who was lurking under the water, felt that the water became a little bit cold and piercing. Just as he realized something was wrong, he bumped into the ice wall. Wuxin was a little confused, and emerged from the water and looked around. Shuifengwan, who was behind him, was dressed in white, with his hands on his chest. He didn't add insult to injury, and quietly looked at Wuxin who emerged from the water. Wuxin's eyes were alert, and he quickly turned his head to look down the river channel. He was in a water flow environment, but in front of him was an ice river, and people could walk on the ice. This scene made Wuxin horrified. The escape route he had prepared was actually cut off by ice. Boy, just surrender. You are young, but you have good ninjutsu. You are a talent. Join our snow clan. When our snow clan replaces the hidden mist village, you will be the pioneer of a new era. Yuki Kazemaru stood on the shore, his arms folded across his chest, speaking coldly. Judging from his lack of ruthlessness, he did have some sincere intentions to recruit. The Snow Clan has only a few thousand ninjas. How can they compete with the Hidden Mist village with tens of thousands of ninjas? You are too fanciful. Wuxin swam to the other side of the river, facing Shuifengmaru across the river. He answered while taking out a small scroll from the tactical pocket of his vest. With a slight shake, the scroll opened, and a huge word, bottle, was written on the white paper. Wuxin pressed his right hand on the word, bottle, and a crystal-clear jade bottle appeared in his hand along with smoke, and his left hand casually threw the sealed scroll on the ground. The Hidden Mist Village can recruit civilians and train ninjas, and our Snow Clan can do the same. You are quite strong, but compared to me, you are far behind. Don't give up your life in vain. Xuefengmaru didn't care about Wuxin's actions, with his hands across his chest, calm and composed, and there was a thirst for talent in his words. Xuefengmaru's calmness put Wuxin under a lot of pressure. Wuxin held the jade bottle in his right hand, and his fingers slightly moved the bottle, causing the jade bottle to rotate in his hand. At the same time, his mind was turning rapidly and thinking. The amount of water stored in the jade purifier bottle in his hand is roughly the same as that of this river, and Yukikazumaru's ice release can freeze the river. Whether he can escape by releasing the water flow of the jade purifier bottle is completely unknown. This guy's strength is even more terrifying than what is described in the intelligence scroll. There is no reason for the Mizukage to send me to perform such a mission. If the assassination fails, there will be few people in the Hidden Mist Village who can match him in a head-on confrontation. Why would the Mizukage think of sending me to perform such a mission? Wuxin's mind was turning quickly, and he had never thought of joining the Snow Clan from beginning to end. The size of the Snow Clan is too different from that of the Hidden Mist Village. The Hidden Mist Village still has a heavyweight weapon, the Tailed Beast, which has not been used. The gap in strength between the two sides is too big. Sorry, I don't have any idea about this for now. I will come to you when I want to change jobs in the future. Wu Xin pondered for a long time and said perfunctorily. While speaking, he opened the seal of the jade bottle, pointed it at the river, and shouted. Release. Accompanying Wu Xin's words, the small bottle mouth, like a whirlpool on the seabed, spewed out a swift and violent water flow, which swept the river and rushed downstream along the river. The flood spewed by the jade bottle caused the river water in the river that was not frozen by the ice escape ninjutsu to rise rapidly, and the ice cover was submerged by the river water, and the flood rushed downstream rapidly. Not only did the river return to normal, but the water level also rose sharply. Such a strong water escape. No. Bottle. Yukikazumaru on the other side of the river did not stop Wu Xin's action at first. As the river water level rose sharply, the originally sparse river water turned into a flood river. Yukikazumaru realized that something was wrong and quickly formed seals with both hands. Xuefengmaru on the other side of the river did not stop Wuxin's action at first. As the water level of the river rose sharply, the originally sparse river water turned into a flood. Xuefengmaru realized that something was wrong and quickly formed seals with both hands. Ninjutsu. Freezing ball technique. A ball of white wind spewed out of Xuefengmaru's mouth. The white wind ball touched the water surface and instantly froze it. But Wuxin was faster. After sealing the bottle mouth, he followed the water flow released from the bottle mouth, dived into the river, and performed the water instant body technique to quickly distance himself. Wuxin moved in front with the help of the water instant body, and the speed of the water flow behind was far slower than Wuxin's speed of escaping along the water flow. Since you can't be used by me, then you have no value in living. Xuefengmaru's face was no longer as calm as before, and he showed violent. Following the direction of the river, he chased downstream, and from time to time he performed the instant body technique to quickly jump a certain distance. The violent river released by Wuxin through the jade purifying bottle gushed out at a fast speed, but it was not as fast as the ninja's running speed and instant body technique. Wuxin held his breath and swam in the river, rushing along the river and rushing quickly to the downstream of the river. Wuxin in the water occasionally performed perception skills to detect the location of Xuefengmaru. This guy, the 3 deadly poisons can only be transmitted through the respiratory tract or blood. The poisonous fog can be shielded by holding the breath, and the poisoned kunai can't break his skin. The poisonous kunai specially prepared for the mission target Xuefengmaru before Wuxin set off couldn't even break his skin. The original battle plan to use poisonous fog to poison the target was directly abandoned at this moment. Wuxin, who was lurking in the flood and rushing downstream, understood what he had to do, otherwise he might not be able to escape the pursuit of Xuefengmaru. Wuxin performed perception skills again to detect and confirm the location of Xuefengmaru. Wuxin was ruthless, the chakra in his body fluctuated, and his hands formed seals. However, Wuxin, whose body was in a diving state, was a little slow in forming seals. Shui Fengmaru, who was running on the shore, followed the flood all the way, rushing down from the mountain along the river. At the foot of the mountain, there was a gathering place for civilians of the Snow Clan, Fubuki Town. Whether it was to stop the flood from ravaging Fubuki Town or to contain Wuxin, Shui Fengmaru could not let the flood rush recklessly. Shui Fengmaru quickly moved to the front of the flood, bent down and pressed his hands on the ground, shouting, "Ice escape! Ice array wall!" An ice wall quickly rose from the ground in front of Shui Fengmaru, and at the same time, the front of the roaring flood began to freeze and connected with the ice wall. The ice wall quickly spread and grew larger, combined with the impact of the flood, turning into a tall and thick ice dam, stopping the fierce flood. The violent water flow behind bombarded the ice wall, like a big wave hitting the shore. After several impacts, the flood could not rush through and spread to the surroundings, turning the surroundings into a swamp. The water in the river turned and condensed, and a giant water dragon nearly 100 meters long and about 10 meters thick emerged from it. Wuxin's body was at the head of the water dragon, and the water dragon raised its head and roared in the river. Water escape. Water dragon bullet technique. As Wuxin's voice came out, the water dragon flew out of the river, crossed the ice wall, opened its mouth, and rushed towards Shui Fengmaru fiercely. Shui Fengmaru looked up at the water dragon, fearless in the face of danger, quickly formed seals with both hands, and finally combined his hands into a somewhat strange seal, and shouted, "Ice escape! Ice dragon bullet technique!" Along with Shui Fengmaru's voice, the river quickly froze, and an ice dragon slightly smaller than the water dragon controlled by Wuxin flew out from between the river and the ice array wall dam built before, and crashed into Wuxin's water dragon. Originally, Earth conquers water. Although ice escape is not earth escape, some characteristics are very similar. The hard head of the ice dragon hits the body of the water dragon, knocking the water dragon to the side. Wuxin, who was diving at the head of the water dragon, saw this and controlled the water dragon to strangle the ice dragon. After a fight, the two were offset, and water marks and ice cubes were scattered in the river and around. After the water dragon was scattered, Wuxin fell from midair and stood on the water, 10 meters away from Shui Fengmaru, looking at each other. Wuxin made the seal of the unknown with his left hand, opened the 5 fingers of his right hand, and condensed a water ball in his palm. The water ball quickly changed its shape and turned into a short sword of water. The water tooth blade, which is compressed by high-pressure water flow, can easily cut stones. Wuxin used this ninjutsu to make up for the lack of attack power of the kunai. Wuxin, holding the short sword, gestured a sword flower, as if ready to attack, but in the middle of the gesture, his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. Instant body slash. Accompanied by Wuxin's roar, Wuxin's figure instantly appeared beside Shui Fengmaru, and slashed at Shui Fengmaru's throat with a sword. The speed was so fast that Shui Fengmaru was caught off guard. He was stunned and beheaded by the sword. The eyes of the head flying in the air were still filled with deep shock. Water instant body slash, one of Wuxin's unique skills, is faster than physical skills such as instant body slash. Many threw the water dragon to create a water environment, in order to use the water instant body technique to surprise and kill with one blow. Wuxin, who succeeded in the rapid sneak attack with the water instant body technique, frowned slightly, did not relax his vigilance, and remained alert. Something is not right. Wuxin, who has killed many people, felt that the feeling of the kill just now was a bit inexplicable. Puff! Shui Fengmaru's headless body fell into the water, splashing water, and then the whole body became crystal clear and turned into ice. The body turned into ice, and it was unknown whether it was an ice clone or an ice substitute. Sure enough, although Wuxin missed the attack, the result was clear, so he breathed a sigh of relief and turned his head slightly to look around. Wuxin was surrounded by no one. Although Shui Fengmaru was proud, he was still a ninja after all. Wuxin's strength was not bad, so he also became serious. Wu Xin was instantly aware of the biting cold under his feet. He looked down at the water below. The water was emitting cold air and freezing quickly. Wu Xin, who noticed this, condensed his chakra on his feet and used the principle of stepping on water to control his chakra to separate his feet from the frozen water. The water froze quickly, but the ice layer was a little thin and the water flow was not completely frozen. 10 meters in front of Wu Xin, the water gushed out and condensed into a figure. Shui Fengwan had a blank expression on his face, stared at Wuxin with cold eyes, and said in a cold voice. Water instant body technique. Just now, you almost succeeded. Sure enough, ninjas of any age should not be underestimated. I'll ask you one last time, are you willing to submit to our Snow Clan? At this point, Shui Fengwan actually began to recruit Wuxin again. Perhaps seeing that Wuxin was young, had superb ninjutsu, and mastered the water instant body technique, he had a little love for talent. Wuxin didn't answer, his eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was thinking. At this moment, Wuxin's chakra was mostly consumed, and he failed to kill Yukikazemaru after several attacks. As he judged before he set out, he was indeed not his opponent. Yukikazemaru's re-recruitment made Wuxin feel a little strange. However, he was not familiar with Yukikazemaru, and the Mizukage Yagura had already intervened in the internal affairs of the Snow Clan. The Snow Clan could not continue to be independent except to join the Hidden Mist Village. I appreciate your kindness, but why don't you join the Hidden Mist Village? As a ninja clan that has been passed down for thousands of years, why go against the trend of the times? Wuxin softly refused and persuaded Yukikazemaru to surrender. While talking, Wuxin quickly reached into the ninja bag with his left hand, took out a small pill, and threw it into his mouth. Liangwan, it seems that you are really stubborn. Killing a genius is really a pity. Shui Fengmaru saw Wuxin's actions and knew what Wuxin had eaten, and also knew that Wuxin would not be recruited. He did not consider Wuxin's counter-admonition at all. Shui Fengmaru shook his head slightly, his chakra violently rioting, his eyes, which were just cold, burst into a blazing murderous intent, and his hands quickly formed a strange seal. Ice escape barrier. Magic mirror ice crystal. Shui Fengmaru shook his head slightly, his chakra violently raging, his eyes, which were just cold, burst into a fiery murderous intent, and his hands quickly formed a strange seal. Ice escape barrier. Magic mirror ice crystal. As Shui Fengmaru's voice fell, countless rectangular ice mirrors condensed out of thin air on the ground of the water, and the rectangular ice mirrors were tightly packed together to form a huge ice cage. In the ice cage, the cold air was pervasive and the temperature was extremely low. The surface of the originally dense water environment was covered with a layer of ice. This ninjutsu. Wuxin stood on the ice, looking at Shui Fengmaru who was making a seal, frowned slightly, and did not attack again. Wuxin needed to use the little chakra left carefully. Although he had taken the Bingliang pill, he still needed some time to wait for the drug to take effect and restore his chakra. Besides, the current environment is full of water. Although there is a layer of ice on the surface, Wuxin can easily escape by performing the water instant body technique with the help of water as long as he can break through the ice surface. Therefore, although he is imprisoned, he is not very nervous. After performing the ninjutsu, Shui Fengmaru jumped on the spot and directly merged into the ice mirror at the top of the barrier. The moment Shui Fengmaru's figure appeared in the ice mirror, Shui Fengmaru's figure appeared in other rectangular ice mirrors. Shui Fengmaru in the ice mirror seemed to know what Wuxin was thinking, and said coldly. Are you thinking about breaking through the water surface and escaping from the barrier? He. I deliberately froze the water surface. Let's see, is your water instant body technique faster, or is my ice instant body technique faster? Shui Fengmaru's words were heard by Wuxin from all directions, making it impossible to tell which one in the magic mirror was the real body. At the end, Yukikazemaru sneered and raised his right hand, holding Force and Bon in one hand. That's it. Swish, swish, swish. The Senbon shot from all directions of the ice crystal of the ice escape magic mirror towards Wuxin who was in the center. It was indeed as Yukikazemaru said, an attack without blind spots. Wuxin's situation was like being surrounded by archers on all sides, and the archers were looking down on him, firing thousands of arrows at the same time. It's not just the speed, it's also the hidden clones. Wuxin, who was in a desperate situation, closed his eyes tightly, and his perception technique saw through the secret of this ninjutsu. Yukikazemaru used ice to perform a high-speed instant body technique, and the instant body of ice moved around in the magic mirror, and with several ice clones mixed in, the speed was so fast that it felt like everyone on the ice mirror was attacking at the same time. After Wuxin understood the secret of ninjutsu, he opened his eyes. When the countless thousand bones were about to hit Wuxin, Wuxin's body turned into a ball of clear water and fell on the ice. The thousand bones were very powerful. They passed through the water and pierced into the ice layer on the ground. The water ball that fell on the ice seemed to be alive. It condensed and stood up again, turning into a water man. The color of the water man changed and turned into the appearance before Wuxin was attacked by the 1,000 bones. Wuxin's face was calm and he said softly, "The speed is really fast. Yukikazemaru, I am not your opponent. But if you rely on your own ability to compete with the Hidden Mist Village, you will only die. Let go of that unrealistic fantasy, join the Hidden Mist Village, and follow the Uchiha and Hyuga Sarutobi ninja clans of Konoha in the Land of Fire. This is the long-term way for your Snow clan." Wuxin, who was at a disadvantage, spoke a little abruptly and tried to persuade him kindly. Wuxin's confidence comes from his perception just now. In the vicinity, Wuxin sensed 7 figures. In the perception technique, the perceived people are like outlines. Each of them carries a strange weapon on their backs, holding their breath and lurking at the edge of Wuxin's perception technique. Through a brief contact with Yukikazemaru, Wuxin also understands some of Yukikazemaru's characteristics. He is one of the leaders of the ninja clan with ambitions and cherishes talents. Wuxin's mission is said to be an assassination, but in fact, it may be a bait to lure Yukikazemaru out of the camp. The real beheading mission should be carried out by Wuxin, the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. The 7 ninja swordsmen are an organization dedicated to carrying out difficult secret missions for the Mizukage. Although Yukikazemaru is powerful, he is besieged by the 7 ninja swordsmen, and I am afraid he will not have a good end. In the magic mirror, hundreds of ice crystals reflected Yukikazemaru's figure, and voices came from all directions. The Hidden Mist Village. Ha! This village without any faith is worthy of our Snow clan to join. From the 1st generation to the 3rd generation, the Hidden Mist Village encroached on 70% of our Snow clan's sphere of influence, attacked and killed our family's ninjas, and committed countless crimes. It even shamelessly asked our Snow clan to join. We, the Snow clan, will never wag our tails and beg for mercy. Haha, it's ridiculous that you, a dying person, also waved the flag and shouted for the Hidden Mist Village. And I actually got entangled with a dying person, it's really funny. Quote. Shuifengmaru's voice was cold and his will was firm. He was not moved at all. He raised his right hand, holding a few senbon between his fingers, and launched an attack again. Let me see your technique. Is it the secret technique stolen from the Ghost Lantern clan? As Shuifengmaru spoke, countless senbon shot out from the magic mirror ice crystal towards Wuxin, and thousands of arrows were fired again. This time, Wuxin did not use the water transformation technique to dodge as Shuifengmaru expected, but quickly formed seals with both hands, and finally put his hands together and shouted. Water escape. Water array wall. The water and ice layer around Wuxin broke with a bang, and the violent water flow surged at a very fast speed, forming a rotating circular water wall. Wuxin put his hands together and carefully controlled the water escape ninjutsu. The water wall rotated and blocked the senbon coefficients shot from all directions. All round without dead angles. Water array wall. It can actually reach this level. Quote. The Shuifengmaru in the magic mirror saw Wuxin's ninjutsu. Although he judged that Wuxin was a genius and took it seriously, Wuxin's water array wall still surprised him. In a sense, this is an absolute defense. What a great guy. The Shuifengmaru in the magic mirror suddenly disappeared, leaving only one in the mirror in front of Wuxin. Shuifengmaru walked out of the mirror and praised him very gracefully. The rotating water flow around Wuxin blocked all the 1,000 books and gradually faded away. In the end, only a few water waves continued to rotate at his feet. The Bingliang pill that Wuxin swallowed before gradually took effect, and the chakra recovered quickly. Only then did he have chakra to perform powerful ninjutsu. Hearing Shuifengmaru's words, Wuxin narrowed his eyes and whispered, Sir, please consider my words. Now is the era of ninja villages. The size of ninja clans is no match for ninja villages. Even if your ninjutsu is strong, it cannot change the size gap between the two sides. Quote. For Shuifengmaru's repeated solicitation and praise, although Wuxin was here to carry out an assassination mission, he still felt a little touched and wanted to recruit him to calm the dispute. After all, no one can completely ignore the recognition and praise of others, even Wuxin is not immune to this. You are very good, but you are not my opponent. Next, I will take it seriously. Shui Fengmaru shook his head, ignoring Wuxin's words of solicitation. His chakra surged, and his hands formed seals. You are very good, but you are not my opponent. Next, I will take it seriously. Shui Fengmaru shook his head, ignoring Wuxin's words of solicitation. His chakra surged, and his hands formed seals. It was just that Wuxin was faster. After failing to persuade him to make peace, he quickly closed his hands, and the water waves that were originally slowly rotating at Wuxin's feet increased rapidly, restoring the scale of the previous water array wall. Water escape. Water tornado. Wuxin shouted out the ninjutsu loudly, and along with Wuxin's voice, the speed of the water flow increased rapidly, and the amount of water also increased visibly. The water tornado has some similarities with the water array wall. Both control the rotation of the water flow. When Wuxin was practicing these two ninjutsu, he summed up the common points of the two ninjutsu. As for the use of the water tornado, Wuxin thought that it would be more effective if used after the water array wall. The fact was just as Wuxin judged. The water tornado took shape very quickly, and the water flow around Wuxin rotated at a high speed, getting higher and higher, bigger and faster. The height of the rotating water flow gradually exceeded the magic mirror ice crystal, and the range of the water flow rotation also approached the magic mirrors around. How can this be so fast? Impossible. When Shui Fengmaru saw this scene, his mouth, which had always been indifferent, opened slightly and his eyes widened. He was really stunned. Shui Fengmaru reacted quickly, jumped back, jumped onto the magic mirror, and merged into the magic mirror. Wuxin controlled the ninjutsu water tornado, and the rotating water flow swallowed all the magic mirrors. The magic mirror ice crystal, which was originally standing still, swayed in the rotating water flow. Wuxin's ninjutsu control has reached the critical point, and his clasped hands separated and slowly pushed forward. Wuxin's hands pushed forward very slowly, as if he was struggling. Ha! Accompanied by Wuxin's violent shout, the swaying magic mirrors all loosened and were swallowed by the water flow, helplessly drifting in the whirlpool water flow. Wuxin pushed his hands forward, and the rotating water flow at the top suddenly bent down and smashed down. The water flow around Wuxin also quickly merged and rushed forward fiercely. This is Wuxin's current water escape trick, A-level water escape ninjutsu, upper and lower attack. Boom! Shui Fengmaru hid in the magic mirror ice crystal. The magic mirror ice crystal can not only help his instant body technique, but also serve as a means of defense. However, the magic mirror was engulfed by the fierce river water. The magic mirror that was rotated to the top was smashed down by the water flow. Many magic mirrors were smashed into pieces with a bang. Some of the magic mirrors hidden by Shui Fengmaru were involuntarily in the water waves, allowing the water flow to hit them, and followed the water flow to rush back to the ice dam he had made before. Boom! Another fierce sound of waves hitting the shore, and all the ice crystals made by the magic mirror ice crystal turned into pieces. Drink, drink, drink. Wuxin's legs softened, and he lay on the watery ground, gasping for breath. 2 consecutive high-level ninjutsu had drained the chakra restored by the Boryomaru, and Wuxin's chakra was once again on the verge of exhaustion. Boryomaru, with regular dosage, once a week will not be too much of a burden on the body. If you take drugs without restraint, it will affect the development and potential of the body. Wuxin's water tornado was originally impacting the river upstream. As Wuxin's chakra faded, the water waves impacting the upstream stopped impacting and began to flow back, rushing downstream along the river. Wuxin took a few breaths and recovered some of his physical strength. Seeing the water waves flowing back to him, Wuxin stood up and jumped a few times. Regardless of whether he had killed Yukikazemaru, he turned around and prepared to retreat. Next, he would leave it to the lurking group. It's snowing. Wu Xin had just taken 2 steps when a few snowflakes floated past him. At the same time, he felt a slight coolness on his head and couldn't help looking up at the sky. In the sky, snowflakes were everywhere. Wu Xin felt something was wrong and lowered his head to continue running. As a result, snowflakes were flying around him. The snowflakes were very large. From the scattered snowflakes when Wu Xin first noticed them, to the heavy snow now, it only took him a while to raise his head and lower his head. You can't escape. On the ice dam, Yukikazemaru's figure slowly emerged from the ice wall. After his upper body emerged, he supported himself on the ice wall with one hand. With a little effort, he jumped out of the ice wall and landed on the water. You made it. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Wu Xin couldn't believe it. The range of the snowflakes was too large, as if it was a natural disaster. At a glance, the range within his sight seemed to have reached the season of snow dancing in the cold winter. Shuifengmaru said nothing, and only made a seal with his hands together. Wuxin was familiar with this seal, a strange seal, with both hands together, the index fingers of both hands together, but the middle fingers of both hands went around the index fingers and wrapped around the index fingers, which should be their ice escape ninjutsu, the seal of the end. This ninjutsu seemed to have a lot of effects on Yukikazumaru. On Yukikazumaru's expressionless face, his face and eyebrows trembled. It's going to be bad. Wuxin could guess from the look that this guy was definitely launching a big move. Wuxin's chakra fluctuated, and he turned his back to Yukikazumaru and rushed forward, trying to get away from Yukikazumaru. The snow in the sky was getting bigger and bigger, and the temperature was getting lower and lower. The weather at the end of September was actually a little hot, but this place turned into a world of ice and snow. The flood that was originally rushing back was frozen at a very fast speed. Although the water on the ground was covered with a layer of ice, Wuxin could still feel the water flow under the ice surface. At this moment, it was all frozen. Ice escape secret. Ice and snow realm method. Accompanied by Yukikazumaru's roar, an ice pillar as thick as a tree suddenly condensed in front of Wuxin. Wuxin reacted quickly and dodged with a right jump, and as a result, an ice pillar also appeared on the right. Wuxin had no choice but to turn back to the previous direction again, and lightly jumped, preparing to jump onto the side of the icicle and use the force to retreat. As a result, when he was about to land on the icicle split and grew a sharp icicle, like a tree sprouting branches. What is this? Wuxin was cautious and slapped the icicle with one hand, and flew into the air to avoid the icicle's stab. Wuxin in the air could see the situation below clearly. Countless icicles rose from the ground, densely packed, and countless icicles also grew in the direction Wuxin wanted to retreat. The icicle branched out and grew many thick icicles, and the icicles branched out again, growing countless slender ice blades and ice needles. Wuxin fell from the air, dodged the icicle stab, and understood the environment he was in. The world has become a world of ice, with ice and snow stretching for countless miles. Icicles branch out and grow countless ice cones, and ice cones branch out and grow countless ice blades. If they are allowed to grow like this, there will probably be no place for people to stand. Wuxin held a kunai and chopped the ice cones and ice blades. The ice cones were extremely strong, and the kunai could only leave a white mark. Why don't you take action? Wuxin already understood his situation. No one came to rescue him. He was afraid that he would die here today, so he shouted for help. Before, Wuxin sensed that there were 7 people with strange swords lurking nearby. Although they were in a lurking state, they were implicated by Wuxin and fell into this ice escape mystery. In the current situation, even if Wuxin did not call for help, the 7 ninja swordsmen had already been exposed and had to jump out to perform the mission. After Wuxin called out loudly, the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist-hidden ninja swordsmen responded to the call very well. A violent chakra airflow split into 2 sides, blasting towards Shuifengmaru and Wuxin respectively. Boom! The ice pillars around Wuxin were bombarded and all cracked. Many debris fell to the ground. The icicles and cones shrank rapidly with the falling of ice, and even broke. Wuxin was also bombarded by the chakra airflow and was blown into the air. Wuxin opened his mouth in the air, stretched his right hand into his mouth, took out a miniature fan, opened his 5 fingers, and the fan quickly grew larger. In less than 2 seconds, the fan was larger than Wuxin. Wuxin held the fan with both hands, aimed at the previous chakra airflow, and fanned it hard. A strong gust of wind flew out from the fan, entangled with the chakra airflow from the 7 ninja swordsmen and others, and the gust of wind engulfed the airflow, adjusted its direction, and concentrated the bombardment. After Wuxin landed in the air, he followed the gust of wind without hesitation and began to break through. After the icicles and cones were broken, they recovered very quickly, and began to take root and sprout again, like an endless tree. Wuxin condensed his chakra and ran all the way, following the direction of the chakra airflow, and retreated directly without hesitation. After the wind escape and chakra airflow broke many icicles and cones for Wuxin's escape, the power gradually weakened. Fortunately, the icicles at the edge were not as tough as those in the middle area. With the two offsetting each other, Wuxin was safe all the way, broke through the heavy siege of ice escape ninjutsu and escaped. What a close call. Wuxin, who escaped from the range of the ice and snow realm, had his legs softened, and lay on the ground, breathing heavily. After a few minutes of desperate escape, Wuxin completely realized the power of this ninjutsu. The radius of the ice and snow world is at least 1,000 meters. It is hard to imagine what kind of chakra can perform this scale of ninjutsu in an ice and snow world with a radius of more than 1,000 meters. Wuxin, who was fleeing all the way, did not pay any attention to the battle situation of the 7 ninja swordsmen in the back. But Wuxin understood one thing: Shui Fengmaru had no spare energy to chase him, otherwise, he would not have escaped so easily. You are worthy of being one of the leaders of the Snow Clan. Even if the Mizukage came out, I am afraid it would not be much better. Wuxin lay on the ground, rested for a while, recovered some physical strength, and after a little thought, he jumped to the tree a few times, bypassed the ice and snow world, and returned to the middle of the forest. Let's see how the fight goes. The 7 Ninja Swordsmen are a special organization that performs high-risk missions for the Mizukage. Even if Yuki Kazemaru's ninjutsu is powerful, he shouldn't be able to get away with it. Wuxin thought, shuttled through the mountains and forests, bypassed the ice and snow world, walked upright on the nearby cliffs, and after reaching the top of the mountain wall, looked into the ice and snow world in the distance. The night was dark. Although the moonlight was bright, Wuxin, who was far away, could only see an endless stretch of white icicles in the dark environment, and could not see the specific situation in the icicle forest. After looking for a while, Wuxin gave up looking, sat on the ground, closed his eyes, and formed the seal of the unknown with his hands. Ninjutsu. Perception. Wuxin's meager chakra seemed to turn into invisible tentacles, extending rapidly forward, 100 meters, 300 meters, 500 meters, 800 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,500 meters. After crossing many strange rocks, trees and icicles, he finally sensed the target. 2 of the largest chakra balls Wuxin had ever seen were entangled, and there were 6 slightly weaker chakra balls around them. That is Yuki Kazemaru's chakra. It's totally different. I seem to have seen the ball next to it somewhere before. Wuxin was shocked after sensing it. Yuki Kazemaru's chakra was even stronger than before when he fought against him. 7 chakra balls surrounded him, and they often retreated at the first touch, like a pack of wolves. One of the chakra balls was comparable to Yuki Kazemaru, which surprised Wuxin and made him feel as if he had seen it somewhere before. Is it him? The 7 ninja swordsmen, Zigwashin Pufferfish Ghost. Samahata. Wuxin thought for a while, and quickly reacted, remembering the owner of that chakra ball. After sensing the battle situation, Wuxin retracted his chakra and opened his eyes. It's useless to stay here. In the Naruto story, there is no such person as Yuki Kazemaru. Wuxin pondered for a moment. In the Naruto plot he knew, there was no such person as Yuki Kazemaru. His ending might have been destined. Wangtu's hegemony was ultimately due to his lack of strength. It's a pity that the land of water has lost such a talent. Wuxin sighed, slowly stood up, turned around and left. Wuxin, who was descending the mountain from the White Mountains, walked to the foot of the mountain. The sky was getting light. At the foot of Hakusen Mountain, there is Fubuki Town, where civilians of the Snow Clan gather. Wuxin had no intention of going to Fubuki Town to rest, and looked back at the mountains. His scattered eyes seemed to be looking at the 7 ninja swordsmen and the Snow Clan's great elder Yuki Kazemaru in the mountains. A few seconds later, Wuxin turned around and went straight back to the Hidden Mist Village. It took Wuxin 5 days to come here from the Hidden Mist Village. On the way back, Wuxin rested and traveled all the way, and it took a week to reach the Hidden Mist Village. After returning to the village, Wuxin was a little more serious and went straight to the Mizukage building. Mizukage building. Outside the Mizukage's office, Wuxin knocked on the door. Come in. Hearing the Mizukage's voice, Wuxin pushed the door open. The petite 4th-generation Mizukage Yagura Kuritachi sat in an office chair, holding a pen and paper, writing something. Lord Mizukage. Wuxin greeted respectfully, then took out a scroll from the tactical pocket of his ninja vest, walked forward, handed it to the Mizukage's desk, and whispered. Lord Mizukage, this is the mission report. Kuju Yagura looked up at Wuxin, smiled, picked up the scroll, opened it, glanced up and down, and within a few seconds, closed the scroll and put it down, saying with a smile, "You really didn't disappoint me. If you had taken action, Yuki Kazemaru would have chased after you according to his personality." This unstable factor has finally subsided. Sure enough, Kuju Yagura checked the mission report, and he couldn't even read 10 lines at a glance, maybe just glanced at it. It must be that the mission report submitted by the 7 ninja swordsmen was more detailed than his own. The so-called S-level mission he was carrying out was actually just a bait. Wuxin secretly complained, saying, "Lord Mizukage, the target of the mission is too powerful, and the 7 ninja swordsmen who came to support him finally took over. I don't know the final battle situation, but if the 7 ninja swordsmen took action, the target of the mission would have died." Wuxin verbally reported the final result of the mission, and was very calm about the failure of his assassination. Since the 7 ninja swordsmen were arranged to take action, it didn't matter whether his mission succeeded or failed. Ah, Yuki Kazemaru, maybe he's dead, or maybe he's not. But none of this matters anymore. Your assassination was very successful. Kokumi Yagura seemed to know Wuxin's thoughts, and smiled warmly, and directly affirmed Wuxin's mission situation. Wuxin no longer cared about the mission at this moment. He was more concerned about Yuki Kazemaru than the mission itself. Hearing this, he asked with some confusion. "Huh, what do you mean? Is Yuki Kazemaru dead or alive?" "Dead, or maybe not." Kuju Yagura touched his chin and spoke slowly. His delicate face looked a little funny, with a big contrast. "Huh." Wuxin was speechless, with confusion in his eyes. If dead, then dead. If not dead, then not dead. Kuju Yagura's words made Wuxin a little confused. Yuki Kazemaru, unable to defeat the 7 ninja swordsmen, desperately used the ice release bloodline limit ninjutsu to freeze himself. The last ice release has become natural, not completely chakra condensed, so even the great sword Samahata of the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon cannot break the ice pillar. The 7 ninja swordsmen guarded for several hours, and no one could hold their breath for so long. The final judgment of the 7 ninja swordsmen is that Yuki Kazemaru is dead, pending. Kuga Yagura saw that Wuxin was very interested in the mission target Yuki Kazemaru, and Wuxin was also one of the mission executors, so he told Wuxin the result without keeping him in suspense. Frozen himself. Dead, pending. Wuxin murmured and repeated it, recalling the scene of his fight with Yuki Kazemaru. This hero who wanted to lead the Snow Clan and replace the Hidden Mist village ended up with regret. Thinking of Yuki Kazemaru's several attempts to recruit people, he was really eager to recruit talents. If he looked at the scale and power of Yuki Kazemaru's final ninjutsu, if Yuki Kazemaru had used it earlier, he might not have been able to hold on for that long. Well, death, pending. But death is death, pending is just undetermined. I asked Yuki Shunsuke, the Snow Clan does not have such ninjutsu. According to Yuki Shunsuke's judgment, Yuki Kazemaru probably committed suicide to avoid humiliation and retain his dignity. Karatachi Yagura had a warm smile on his face while speaking. He seemed to be very relaxed about Yuki Kazemaru's death. After a slight pause, he continued. "This time, you made me shine in front of Yuki Shunsuke. However, this is for our Kurigakure, for a genius who is rarely seen in decades. It is not enough, far from enough. You need to improve your strength as soon as possible. If there is any ninjutsu you want to learn or any technique you are interested in, please tell me at any time. I still have many tasks, and I need you to share my worries." Quote. Wuxin nodded. The words of the Mizukage contained a lot of information. Wuxin put the matter of Shuifengmaru's mission behind him and said, "Mizukage, I want to go to the Kurigakure hospital for further study and practice systematic medical ninjutsu." Medical ninjutsu is a ninjutsu that Wuxin has wanted to study for a long time. Not to mention reaching the top level, at least the palm fairy technique should be proficient in use. I have mastered the pre-training ninjutsu healing technique of the palm fairy technique, and the medical ninjutsu is not up to par. I have this talent, and I should use it. In the world of ninjas, there are many kinds of despicable means, all kinds of poisons, all kinds of burns, internal injuries, knife wounds, and medical ninjutsu can handle almost all of them. As a ninjutsu learner, Wuxin first learned life-saving ninjutsu. He always had a clear goal for his pursuit of ninjutsu. In the final analysis, it is to be invincible, to be able to heal injuries quickly, and to run fast. Based on these basics, he can then practice various fighting techniques or powerful ninjutsu. Practicing in Kurigakure Hospital. You are good at ninjutsu and illusion, but you change to medical ninjutsu and sit in the rear. Kurodachi Yagura was a little surprised, and the indifferent smile on his face slowly disappeared, turning serious. A well-known genius ninja, going to the ninja hospital to practice, does not conform to the ninja training practice of Kurigakure village. Although he said that he could ask for any request and learn any ninjutsu, Wuxen's request to join the medical ninja sequence was a little difficult for Yagura to accept. Medical ninjas are valuable talents of the village. When performing tasks, this type of ninja is a protected unit, which does not meet his expectations for Wuxen's training. Hey, Mizukuji-sama, you just told me to ask for anything, you won't change your mind so soon. Wuxen hurriedly reminded Yagura, but seeing Yagura's delicate and expressionless face, Wuxen instantly guessed what Yagura was thinking. Medical ninjas are not in the ninja combat sequence. As a ninja with a reputation as a genius, it is definitely not in line with the spirit of the Hidden Mist village to just do nothing. Although the brutal policy of the Blood Mist has been reformed, the martial and bloodthirsty style is not so easy to change overnight. Wuxen looked at Yagura's serious face and said in a deep voice, Mizukuji-sama, I am not going to quit the combat ninja sequence, I just need to learn medical ninjutsu. The longer you stay on the battlefield after mastering medical ninjutsu, the better you can serve the mission and make more contributions. I will always fight on the front line and respond to your call for mission. This does not conflict with practicing medical ninjutsu. After all, I am one of the only 2 graduating genin among the 9-year-old graduates, and I was promoted to chunin in the same year. I am known as a genius throughout the village. Even if you let me stay in the rear, I am afraid I can't stand the villagers' gossip. Quote. Wuxen said at the end, revealing a sunny smile. He explained his position thoroughly, and he had no intention of hiding in the ninja hospital. However, Wuxen also knew that medical ninjas who were good at advanced medical ninjutsu were valuable talents in the village. Whether the senior officials were willing to let the valuable medical ninjas go on high-risk missions was not Wuxen's concern. Kudagi Yagura reached out and touched his chin. His delicate face had deep eyes, as if he was thinking. After a while, the 4th generation Mizukuji Yagura slowly said, Okay, since you have this intention, I shouldn't stop you. However, you must keep in mind our ideals. The construction of the village requires my efforts, and at the same time, it also requires your dedication. The situation of the village is not very safe. I have been the Mizukuji for more than half a year, and now I understand the suffering of the village and the hardships of the Mizukuji. Recently, the ships of the Cloud Village in the Land of Lightning in the north have often crossed the border and done whatever they want in our territory, creating friction and provoking at will. The strength of the Cloud Village is very strong, united. To some extent, it is even no less than that of the Leaf Village. Quote. Yakura said, while rubbing his temple with his hand. After a slight pause, he continued. In China, the situation of the Snow Clan has temporarily calmed down. But there is still the Kagaya clan, which gives me a headache. Quote. Kurodachi Yakura's words seemed to be complaining, and his tone was very helpless. Wuxen stood honestly, and did not dare to respond to the complaints of the Mizukuji. After Yakura talked about the domestic and international situation, he changed the subject and said in a deep voice. I allow your request. I will arrange the best medical ninja in the village to be your mentor and teach you medical ninjutsu. However, you must remember that the current situation of the village is very difficult. While practicing medical ninjutsu, you must not slack off in combat ninjutsu. I hope you can learn this technique while practicing medical ninjutsu. Quote. Kuga Yagura spoke seriously, and after finishing speaking, he took out a scroll from the drawer. In the early morning, the sun was shining brightly. In the C3 training ground of the forest at the southeast edge of the Hidden Mist village, Wuxen sat on a stone pier beside the stream, holding a scroll in his hand, his brows furrowed. Water mirror technique, 3 days, and I still can't figure it out. Is this a ninjutsu, or a secret technique with prerequisites? Water mirror technique, a water escape ninjutsu, uses chakra to turn into water, and then uses the water to condense into a reflective mirror. The mirror can replicate the same attack as the invading enemy, which is a ninjutsu that returns the same attack to the enemy. The disadvantage is that if the enemy does not attack, the replicated water mirror will not attack either, just like a real mirror. No matter what attack technique the enemy uses, it will be offset by the mirror's replica in the same way. In the final analysis, it is a defensive technique, and there is no level definition. Wuxin has mastered a lot of ninjutsu in the past few days of practice, and can probably judge the level of this technique. This is a technique that exceeds the learning level of Murayama Yuto's water-style illusion mist magic prison, and it is much more complicated, and should have reached S level. Copy the enemy's moves, and the attacks will cancel each other out. Will I also make a name for myself as a copy ninja in the future? Wu Xin closed the scroll with some self-mockery, jumped off the stone pier, and returned to the village. Wu Xin completed the last S-level mission. Yagura gave Wu Xin the S-level mission reward and arranged for Wu Xin to be a trainee medical ninja at the Hidden Mist Hospital. Today is Wu Xin's first day of work. After completing his morning exercises, Wu Xin walked all the way to the Hidden Mist Hospital. The Hidden Mist Hospital is located in the central area of the village, not far to the south of the Mizukage building. Wu Xin rushed all the way to the Hidden Mist Hospital and took a look at the environment. The hospital covers a large area and is surrounded by a large courtyard. There are outpatient buildings, inpatient buildings, dormitory buildings and other buildings inside. Wu Xin walked directly into the outpatient building according to the address on the transfer order and took the elevator to the 20th floor. On the top floor of the 20th floor, Wuxin strode out of the elevator, walked through the corridor, arrived at the door of the dean's office, and knocked on the door. "Come in." A somewhat old voice came from the door. Wuxin pushed the door open and stepped into the dean's office. There was a scent of flowers in the office. The area was spacious, and the walls were lined with bookshelves. The bookshelves were full of scrolls and books. There was a sofa and a tea table on one side of the office, and a desk on the other side. There was a green potted plant in the corner. Sitting on the office chair was an old man with old-fashioned round glasses, a wrinkled face, and a white beard wearing the traditional green robe of the Hidden Mist village. Wuxin looked at the old man, bowed slightly, and said in a deep voice. Wuxin was ordered by the Mizukage to report here. I have met the dean, Rangqi. After that, he stepped forward and presented the transfer order in his hand to the dean of the Hidden Mist Hospital, Rangqi Fukuryu, with both hands. Fukudome Joji took the document handed over by Wuxin with his right hand, then adjusted his glasses, looked at Wuxin carefully, nodded slightly, and said. The Kurigakure prodigy, Wuxin, really looks like Hayata Kofang, worthy of being her child. When Wuxin heard the dean mention his mother's name, he was stunned for a moment, and responded woodenly. Yes. Wuxin lowered his eyes and looked at Fukudome Joji, the dean of Kurigakure Hospital, carefully again. His face was full of wrinkles, with a big white beard, and he looked very old. His mother Hayata Kofang had also studied medical ninjutsu at Kurigakure Hospital. Judging from Fukudome Joji's age, maybe his mother was an intern under him back then. Fukudome Ryuji glanced at the transfer order Wuxin handed to him, slowly placed it on the table, and said softly. Have you mastered the healing technique? It's great that you can reach this level by self-study. It seems that your mother's medical ninjutsu talent should have been inherited by you. My mother once taught me some ninjutsu and knowledge in medical ninjutsu, and it was because of these ninjutsu that I avoided many dangers during the mission. Wuxin thought for a while and answered softly. Fukudome Ryuji did not answer, but looked at Wuxin straight. The scene suddenly fell into silence, and Fukudome Ryuji's eyes also made Wuxin feel a little uncomfortable, and frowned slightly. After a moment of silence, Fukudome Joji, the director of Kurigakure Hospital, said with a serious face. Although your talent in medical ninjutsu is good, it is still much inferior to your talent in other aspects of ninjutsu. As a well-known genius prodigy in the village, I think you should perform more tasks for the Mizukage and make greater contributions. You should not curl up in Kurigakure Hospital. Wuxin's eyes narrowed slightly when he heard this. Fukudome Joji had praised Wuxin for his talent in medical ninjutsu before. The attitude changed so quickly that Wuxin did not react for a while. Come on. Wuxin looked uneasy, just opened his mouth, and suddenly thought of something, so he held back his words. Originally, Wuxin wanted to ask him to obey the Mizukage's order, and other things were not his concern. But thinking that he was working in Kurigakure Hospital, it was not a good behavior to disrespect the dean. Mizuki's transferred me to Kurigakure Hospital. Of course, he had his considerations. And I have studied medical ninjutsu before, and I also have a need for further practice of medical ninjutsu, which will help me complete difficult tasks. As a ninja, you can survive longer in missions and on the battlefield, so that you can make more contributions to the village. I believe that the better the comprehensive ability, the greater the role you can play. Wuxin had a blank expression on his face, and his disrespectful words finally softened a little, and he explained the purpose softly. Oh, I hope so. Ryuji Fukuryu sneered, stood up from his office chair, and walked out of the office door. When he walked out of the door, he said, "Follow me." Wuxin did not answer, but followed silently. The outpatient department of Kurigakure Hospital is 20 stories high. The top floor of the 20th floor is where the offices of the hospital's senior executives are located. Wuxin followed Ryuji Fukuryu from the corridor to the door of Office 2011. Ryuji Fukuryu knocked lightly on the door of Office 2011, and a male voice came from the office asking for someone to come in. Ryuji Fukuryu led Wuxin into Office 2011. Wuxin looked around the office as usual. Compared with the office of Dean Ryuji Fukuryu, it was a few sizes smaller. The same thing was that there were also many books and scrolls in the wall cabinet, and the desk was by the window. On the office chair, a green-haired man in his early 30s was holding a book in his hand, and he seemed to be studying something. "Master Rangchi, why are you here in person? If you have anything to say, just ask the assistant to call me." The green-haired man saw Dean Fukuryu Rangchi coming with a young man, and immediately stood up from his office chair with a very respectful attitude. "Master Rangchi, why are you here in person? If you have anything to say, just ask the assistant to call me." The green-haired man saw the Dean Fukudome Rangchi coming with a young man, and immediately stood up from his office chair with a very respectful attitude. Fukudome Rangchi nodded slightly, turned sideways and motioned Wuxin behind him to come forward, and said softly, "Shin, this is our village's genius ninja, Wuxin. The Mizuki has specially ordered him to study in the hospital. From today, you will be responsible for teaching him. It is imperative to use the most rigorous and scientific teaching methods to train him as soon as possible. This is the special order of the Mizuki. I think you understand what it means." Wuxin, yes. The green-haired man named Shin heard Wuxin's name, repeated it with some doubts, and simply agreed. Wuxin couldn't help but reach out and touch his temple. How could he learn medical-related knowledge and ninjutsu quickly? This training as soon as possible made Wuxin feel a little ashamed. After Fukudome Ryuji finished speaking, he turned to look at Wuxin and said, "This is our hospital's medical senior ninja Arita Nobuyuki. He will be your mentor in the future. You must practice well here and never be careless." After Fukudome Ryuji finished explaining to both sides, he turned around and left leisurely. "Yes," Wuxin responded softly, and after watching Fukudome Ryuji, the director of Kurigakure Hospital, leave, he turned around and looked at the medical senior ninja Arita Nobuyuki. Arita Nobuyuki slowly sat back in his seat, looked Wuxin up and down, and smiled. "You are the Kurigakure prodigy, the genius ninja Wuxin. Not bad, not bad. It seems that our medical department will have another capable person." The rather polite words made Wuxin feel a little relieved, and he smiled back and whispered, "Teacher Arita Nobuyuki, please take care of me in the future." After Wuxin finished speaking, he bowed slightly to show his humility in accordance with the tradition of the lower to the upper in the land of water. There is no such thing as care when learning medical ninjutsu. Practice makes perfect, and the practice of medical ninjutsu is about practice. Arita Nobuo had a warm smile on his face and spoke softly. After he finished speaking, he stood up and took out 2 books from the bookshelf behind him, put them on the desk, and waved to Wuxin, motioning Wuxin to come forward. Wuxin strode forward and stood beside the desk. Arita Nobuo pointed to the books on the table and said softly, "This is the learning material, you take it first. The practice of medical ninjutsu first requires a foundation. This, Herb Encyclopedia, is the medicinal properties of various herbs, which is the knowledge that medical ninjas must master. This, medical ninjutsu, includes several medical ninjutsu commonly used in the Kurigakure Hospital. It is a technique that medical ninjas must understand and master. Put the book away. Every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, I will give lectures at the teaching office on the top floor of the dormitory building to teach the knowledge of human veins, and organize medical ninjutsu experiments. In the first month, there is no requirement for your mastery of medical ninjutsu. Starting from the second month, there will be medical ninjutsu tests, even if you are an intern specially transferred by the Mizukage. If you fail or are not suitable for medical ninjutsu training, I will report it to the dean and Mizukage truthfully. I hope you will work hard. Quote, when Arita Nobu talked about learning matters, his face was quite serious, with the majesty of a lecturer, and at the end, there was a strong sense of spurring. Yes. Wuxin looked at Arita Nobu, agreed softly, and picked up the book on the table. Herbal Encyclopedia is very thick. Compared with Herbal Encyclopedia, another book called Medical Ninjutsu is a bit thin, and the thickness is about 1/4 of Herbal Encyclopedia. Well, for the basic knowledge, study on your own first. If you don't understand something, feel free to ask me. After seeing Wuxin put the book in his arms, Arita Nobuyuki gave instructions, turned around and took down a white coat from the wall, and put it on while continuing. Now, follow me to the inpatient department for rounds. Yes. Wuxin agreed softly. Wuxin came to Kurigakure Hospital to study medical ninjutsu, and didn't care about the casualness of these medical ninjas. As far as Wuxin knows, medical ninjas are generally chunin strength, and have special expertise in medical ninjutsu, and are appointed as special jonins. Job titles are generally not simplified, and medical special jonins are medical special jonins, not simply medical jonins. This Arita Nobuyuki can serve as a medical jonin, and I think there are some extraordinary qualities. It's just that Wuxin is not very familiar with the affairs of the medical department, and it will take some time to slowly get familiar with the people and things in Kurigakure Hospital. After Arita Nobu put on his white coat, he walked to a cabinet against the wall, opened it, took out a new white coat, and handed it to Wuxin. You need to wear a white coat when you inspect the inpatient department. Put on your clothes and follow me. After Arita Nobu handed the clothes to Wuxin, he turned and walked out of the office. Wuxin quickly put on the white coat, held 2 books in his hands, and followed Arita Nobu. Take the elevator from the top floor of the outpatient department to the first floor. There is a flower garden between the outpatient building and the inpatient building. Wuxin followed Arita Nobu and walked slowly all the way to the inpatient building. The inpatient building is 12 stories high. Arita Nobu walked lightly and came to the medical room on the 5th floor with ease. He summoned the doctors in the medical room and began to inspect the wards. Wuxin followed the team and silently observed the doctors around him. 8 doctors, 5 women and 3 men, all looked only 17 or 18 years old. Only one male doctor who was walking next to Arita Nobu in the medical department had wrinkles on his face and looked middle-aged. The team walked into the ward at the end of the corridor. There were 3 beds in the room, and the injured lying on the beds were wearing hospital gowns. How are you? Do you feel better? Arita Nobu led the team, with a warm smile on his face, and greeted the injured softly. Dr. Nobu, you are here. I am much better. My arm has fully recovered and I feel I can be discharged. The patient on bed 501 sat up from the bed and shook his right arm a few times to show Arita Nobu his recovery. Hey, don't shake your arm. The knife wound on your arm damaged the nerves. Although it has been restored through medical ninjutsu, you still need to observe for a few days. Whether it is for your arm or for your future ninja career, you need to be patient for the time being. After the observation confirms that there is no problem, you will be issued a discharge certificate. Please rest assured to recuperate. Arita Nobu spoke softly, comforting the injured. After a brief chat, he led the team to the next bed. Wuxin had just started his first day at work and had not learned a few moves of medical ninjutsu before he started his internship. He followed the team with 2 books in his arms, looking around with a serious face. After following the team and inspecting several wards, Wuxin did not encounter the situation that he had originally thought he would have to perform medical ninjutsu. The so-called inspection of the wards was just the attending doctor or director observing the patient's recovery and treatment, and no emergencies occurred. Night. In the courtyard of Wuxin's residence, Wuxin was wearing a thin mesh short-sleeved shirt, standing by the well, quietly looking at the bright moon reflected in the well. Not far away, the ninja dog Wonkai was curled up in a corner, resting with his eyes closed, a scene of peace and tranquility. The weather has become hotter unknowingly. Wuxin joined the Kurigakure Hospital in October last year, and it has been more than half a year since then, and it is July again. Wuxin stared at the bright moon reflected in the well for a long time, and some strange feelings arose in his heart. He quickly formed seals with both hands. After 15 seals, his hands maintained the ending seal of Mao. As Wuxin formed seals, the water in the well quickly rose and surged. The well water gushed out of the well mouth, rolled for a while, and turned into an elliptical water mirror about 2 meters high. The water mirror showed Wuxin very clearly. Wuxin stared at himself in the water mirror, swung his arm suddenly, and punched the mirror. Thump! Wuxin in the mirror made the same move and punched Wuxin. The strange thing was that the fist in the mirror rushed out of the mirror directly and hit Wuxin's fist head-on, making a dull sound of two fists hitting each other. After punching Wuxin with the fist in the mirror, it suddenly turned into a pool of water waves and scattered at the edge of the well. Then, the water mirror also turned into blue water waves and scattered back into the well. Wuxin's face turned upside down, which showed that the next punch had a big recoil. His left hand gently slapped the front of his right fist, but his eyes were full of surprise. Success. Successful in performing. 9 months. Hard work really pays off. Wuxin has been practicing the water mirror technique for 9 months. Although he can condense a water mirror a long time ago, he cannot copy and counterattack with the water mirror. Today, I was watching the moon in the well and had a sudden realization. After performing it, I was able to use the water mirror technique to its full power. Wuxin once again formed a seal with both hands. With just one seal, the water in the well rose up and condensed into the appearance of Wuxin. Wuxin's water clone slowly walked to a place about 10 meters away from the well and stood quietly. Wuxin himself formed the water mirror technique seal with both hands. After 15 seals, he formed the Mao seal with both hands. Under the fluctuation of Wuxin's chakra, the well water rolled and rose, gushed out of the water, and turned into a mirror, facing Wuxin's water clone. Wuxin's water clone rushed forward a few steps, jumped up and kicked hard in the air. With the sound of water splashing in the water mirror, an identical Wuxin flew out of the water mirror and attacked in the same way as Wuxin's water clone. The two sides kicked each other hard, and after the 2 feet touched, a muffled sound was heard, and Wuxin's water clone and the replica that rushed out of the water mirror technique both turned into water waves and scattered on the ground. Wuxin's real body standing next to the well retracted his chakra, and the water mirror technique was lifted, turning into water waves, and the clear water fell back into the well. Wuxin's experiment with the water mirror technique was very successful, and he could not hide his joy in his eyes. Standing quietly, his mind recalled the feeling of performing the technique several times again, and he thoroughly consolidated the water mirror technique. The 4th generation Mizuki Yagura said that he could simplify the water mirror technique to 2 seals, and quickly form the water mirror with the help of weapons. This technique is good and very useful, but it needs to be simplified. Or, you can refer to Yagura's method of using weapons to assist. Wuxin thought about it, and the idea of simplifying ninjutsu came to his mind as soon as he successfully practiced ninjutsu. Mizuki Yagura used a long-handled weapon similar to a hook to assist. Wuxin is good at making ninja tools and treasures, and has his own method of improving ninja tools. Shujing, if you use a mirror to record this technique, it may be much simpler than Yagura's long hook. Let's stop here today. There will be an exam at Kurigakure Hospital tomorrow. Let's study the treasure after passing the medical ninjutsu exam. After successfully practicing the shujing technique, Wuxin was in a very good mood. After briefly thinking about the strategy for the future use of the shujing technique, he turned and walked into the house, returned to the bedroom, covered himself with a thin blanket, and fell asleep. The next day, in the morning, Wuxin finished his morning exercise, washed up, and went directly to Kurigakure Hospital. He walked slowly all the way and arrived at Kurigakure Hospital, and went straight to the infirmary on the 5th floor. There are 5 women and 4 men in the infirmary on the 5th floor of the inpatient department, including Wuxin, and only Wuxin is the youngest in age and physique. The middle-aged Dr. Fujishima Yuta with wrinkles on his face is the right-hand man of the medical ninja Arita Nobuyuki. He serves as the squad leader of the infirmary and trains the younger generation on his behalf most of the time. Most of the ninjas who joined Kurigakure Hospital grew up during the Blood Mist period. They have similar personalities and are usually indifferent. Wuxin is also a ninja in the late blood mist period. Although he is usually polite, he is actually indifferent. After entering the infirmary, he went directly to the closet and took out a white coat from his closet and put it on. The ninjas of Karigakure Hospital are generally not in combat sequence. Wuxin has not worn a ninja vest for a long time. No, although he was not wearing a vest, his clothes were still tight combat uniforms. It was just that the weather was hot recently, so Wuxin changed into summer clothes with mesh short sleeves and cropped shorts. The exam is at 9:30, get ready, and we will leave for the training room soon. Seeing that the medical ninjas had arrived, Fujishima Yuta, the squad leader of the medical room, gave instructions and continued to look through the case files of hospitalized patients. Yes, X8. Wuxin and other medical ninjas responded softly, and then they were busy with their own things. Wuxin looked at his pocket watch, it was 9:01, and he looked around the room and saw that no one got up and left. So he put away his pocket watch, walked out of the medical room, took the elevator downstairs, and went to the dormitory building. The dormitory building is where the medical ninjas stay and are on duty. Wuxin also has a room in the dormitory building, but he did not stay there. The medical ninja training room is on the top floor of the dormitory building. Wuxin walked slowly all the way. After taking the elevator to the training room on the top floor, he saw that the door of the training room had not yet opened, so he stood by the window in the corridor and waited with peace of mind. A few minutes later, Wuxin's mentor, medical ninja Arita Nobuyuki, appeared in the corridor in a white coat. Teacher Nobuyuki. Wuxin was thinking about the structure of the ninja tools used in the water mirror technique. When he heard footsteps, he turned around and saw that it was his mentor Arita Nobuyuki. He greeted him softly. You came so early, you are quite confident. It's good to be confident, but there is no quick way to learn medicine. Although you master medical ninjutsu very quickly, it still takes time to settle. Arita Nobuyuki nodded to Wuxin with a smile on his face, walked straight to the door of the training room, and took out the key to open the door while talking. Although the words were somewhat negative, from his smile, it can be seen that he was very satisfied with Wuxin. After more than 9 months of medical ninja apprenticeship, no matter how complicated the medical ninjutsu is, it is no longer complicated in front of Wuxin. In just half a year, Wuxin has learned all the medical ninjutsu that medical ninjas in the Hidden Mist Hospital need to master. Even Arita Nobu, who is at the level of medical ninja, often sighs that Wuxin is worthy of being a famous genius in the Hidden Mist village. You teach me, but I still have a lot to learn. Wuxin responded with a humble attitude and followed Arita Nobu into the training room with a smile. Arita Nobu is usually responsible for a lot of affairs, but for Wuxin's questions, he always takes time to teach carefully. Wuxin has a good impression of Arita Nobu as a mentor, and they have a high mutual affection. In the training room, Wuxin walked to the desk, sat down, and looked around the long table behind. The layout of the training room is very simple. There are some tables and chairs for the students under the podium, and a long table at the back. There was a large box covered with cloth on the long table today. Wuxin was a little curious about what the experimental materials were today. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.